Welcome to Chronic Combat Conversations, a live look at our best bets, picks, and predictions for every UFC event. With your hosts, TV Scouting MMA and
The Guru back again for UFC 274. Charles Du Bronx Oliveira versus Justin the Highlight Gaethje for your lightweight title. I know we say this a lot about being exciting fights, but this has all the makings of being like a Hall of Fame, extremely exciting fight, ridiculous card. But before we can get into that, we have, you may know him from a lot of places. You may know him from the Deadlock podcast with our guy, Preet. You may know him from Pub Sports Radio, but you probably just know him from Twitter, TikTok. The dude is all over. Our guy, longtime special guest, good friend, Clint from Die Hard MMA podcast. What is going on, my friend?
What's going on, guys? Happy to be here, break down another card with you. And what a card it is to break down. This one is serious, and I'm looking forward to chatting about it with you guys.
Not for nothing, but the last time you were here, November, we had our best, most views. We had our best bets in terms of units. I mean, we kind of killed it. We had a great time at the damn show. Like, it was awesome. So we're kind of hoping to emulate that energy again here tonight for Saturday. Oh my goodness, TB, what do you got? What do we got here, bud?
all right, well, hey, let's just pop it up because this first fight that we're going to talk about is what this whole card is built around. We got Charles Oliveira versus Justin Gaethje. Talk about bringing the violence. This one's going to be a hell of a fight as long as it actually goes for. I can't tell you exactly how long. I just can't see this one going the distance. And then you got Rose Namajunas versus Carlos Esparza, a rematch 8 years in the making. Man, and then it just keeps on going and going. We got 15 bangers on here. I think it's going to be one hell of a show. And without further ado, we might as well get right down into it, huh?
Yeah, absolutely. Oh my goodness. I'm nervous to touch I'm even nervous to talk about this fight. It's just oh God, it's so exciting. I really can't wait. Justin Gaethje, man, just the what right? He sets himself on fire just to burn somebody a little bit, man. He's absolutely crazy. What's going on, man? Oh, what's up, Mac? Good to see you, man. Thanks for
Hell yeah,
popping
dude.
in. Had a good time hanging out with you, CFFC. That was awesome, man.
That was a great time. And
It was.
man, UFC 274, that's going to be one hell of a great time. Charles Oliveira versus Justin Gaethje, I really think no matter what happens here, but we're going to see some sort of finish. I think Oliveira is kind of live, whether it's by knockout or submission. It's just, I don't know if he has what it takes to get into those deeper parts to take Justin Gaethje out because that chin can survive an awful lot. So really, Oliveira, I see is like his most likely path is going to be submission, and Gaethje, if he's going to get it done, quite simply, you would hope he's working those calf kicks as he usually does, and maybe not throwing too wildly so he doesn't get caught out of position. But man, if he could pull off a another great performance like his Tony Ferguson stand up battle, yeah, he might be looking good here. But it just feels like his takedown defense is built for more traditional wrestlers like the Michael Chandler ilk. And Oliveira really likes to use the body lock, get around, use the fence, go for trips, grapevining, taking the back. So if it does get to the grappling aspect, that I really do favor Oliveira, and probably rather quickly if it does get there. I think Gaethje will be better suited this time around with the pressure and the pace. I'm not sure that Oliveira is the same type of guy like Khabib in that respect. So I do lean Oliveira to win this fight, but at minus 190, I'm not really rushing to play the money line here. And in fact, like I find the most value as far as a prop goes, like Gaethje's knockout at plus 200 or Oliveira by sub at plus 120, depending on what side you're on. And since I'm on the Oliveira side, I'll take the plus 120. And, I'm not going crazy on this fight. I just think that there's a lot of variance either way, but I got to have a little something on the main event here. Guru, what are you seeing?
I'm seeing a lot of blood. I'm seeing a lot of action. I'm seeing me having clench fits, freaking out. Um, there's a lot going on in this fight. I've been watching Justin Gaethje release his YouTube videos on YouTube, obviously, and the training has just been impeccable. He's saying all the right things. His mind seems in the right place. in terms of he's from Arizona, I think that's major. I know last time I was in Arizona, Brandon Moreno fought for the title, and he had that hometown vibes, working, cooking, and it kind of was magical in terms of that. And I think that Gaethje might be able to stir some of that magic. Like I said, he's just been saying all the right things. He looks incredible. Charles is just so dangerous. And the one of the bigger things is that, like TB was mentioning about the takedowns, which is always important, right? He likes the singles, he can backpack you, he can climb. He also doesn't need a takedown to get you to the ground. You slip on a banana peel, you fall to the ground with him, he pulls you like it could be anything, and you're in a position where you don't want to be. And one thing I was watching from rewatching in the Justin and Chandler fight is he's still Gaethje. He's become a much more refined professional version of himself, but he's still that same guy that was there with Michael Johnson, swinging and wanging and banging and overthrowing on his strikes and putting himself out of position and getting wobbled and hurt in that first round by Chandler. I don't think that I don't think uh uh I don't think Oliveira is gonna knock him out or anything like early because Gaethje's so tough. But I think if you like you saw with Dustin Poirier, if you break the guy's will, if you think that if it's going into the third round and Justin doesn't think he's got a way to win, like he's gonna get subbed, and that's a problem. Um, Man, it's like all my heart, like I want to be on Justin, right? And that was the other thing. He's coming out to mariachi music. His mom's Mexican. It's Mother's Day the next day. Like there's a lot of things really cooking. It makes a great rematch for Charles in Brazil or something. Like there's so many really big things that can happen. I just There's something telling me to stick with Charles, but like TB so adequately put it, the line is not great at the moment. And why bet Justin Gaethje at plus 160 money line when I think the only way he wins is knockout. Without further ado, the man, the myth, the legend, Clint, what do you got for us?
Man, I am struggling really badly.
Yes,
with
we're
this
on the struggle
fight.
bus together.
Yeah, you know what? All week I've been saying, I think it's Charles, I think it's Charles, I think it's Charles. And the longer the week goes, like you mentioned, Justin's saying all the right things. You go back and you watch all of his previous fights, the last couple of them, you can see the evolution from the Donald Cerrone to the Michael Chandler fight.
Oh yeah.
And even in that Michael Chandler fight, they asked him about it at the fighter interviews today, and he said he thought it was boring. Like it was a fight of the year candidate. Like that was a barn burner. And he's like, but I was never in any danger. It was boring. Like he had such control over that fight from inside the octagon that it's almost terrifying. And you're right. He is the same guy, just a little bit more restrained. And honestly, I think that's perfect. I think that's ideal. Yeah. So Trevor Whitman is doing things with Justin Gaethje, and he's training with Rose, and he's training with Usman. Like you don't get better training partners than that. So this is just that spot that, man, I'm like, I've been saying it's Charles all week. There's no way in hell I'm laying the chalk with Charles against a guy like Justin Gaethje. I wouldn't be shocked at all if this fight surprises everybody and sails over, guys, because Justin Gaethje has shown in his last couple of fights that he is not sitting down for that one hitter quitter. Now, for the Khabib fight, he did that because he knew you're not going to last wrestling with Khabib, right? Well, like you mentioned with this fight with Charles Oliveira, he knows that he can't get into these grappling situations, but it's not a blast double leg. It's not a single leg. He's not going to get his foot picked up over his head. He needs to make sure his back doesn't hit the cage. He needs to make sure he doesn't give up the underhooks, the body lock. Justin's going to be on his bike this entire fight. He's going to be staying on the outside. He's going to kick the shit out of Charles Oliveira's legs. And when he has an opportunity to blitz in or use those uppercuts, that's what he's going to do. But at all costs, he is going to keep his ass off that fence. And what that means to me is that he's not going to be sitting on his punches quite as much. What that means to me is it's going to look a lot like the Tony Ferguson fight, where he tried to avoid the big exchanges and circle out. It's going to look a lot like the Michael Chandler fight, where he didn't want to drop the gloves and bang in the center of the cage. I think we're going to see a much more refined Justin Gaethje this week. And because of that, especially with Charles Oliveira's kicking game on the feet, the way he likes that push kick from the front, the way he stays on the outside, I think we could get a very high level and respectful striking match this weekend. I think this fight is going to play out a lot closer than people think. I don't think we're going to get that early second round knockout. Now, trust me, both these guys are more than capable of an early finish. We've seen it time and time again. I'm not saying, 0% that's not going to happen or anything like that. But I think the game plan lends itself to these guys feeling each other out for a long time and maybe a late finish once one of them finally folds over, or even seeing this thing go all the way to the judges' scorecards without a whole lot of grappling, because Charles Oliveira doesn't have the type of wrestling that it takes to push someone like Gaethje to exhaustion. He doesn't have the type of wrestling that it takes to get Gaethje down to the ground unless he gets him pinned up against the fence. We're in the big cage, boys. He's going to have plenty of room to work. I'm kind of scaring myself here, but I might take a flyer on Justin Gaethje by decision at 10-1.
Yeah, I
Wow.
mean, those kind of value shots are certainly interesting to look at. And if I know you, Clint, like you're gonna watch weigh-ins this week, and Charles always looks like a skeleton, and Gaethje, I have a feeling is gonna be like just a little bit thicker, especially like in the back, maybe because I think Charles is just a lankier guy. And again, especially when he gets those ghost cheeks when he really cuts that weight, and he wears
Yeah,
his
he does.
sunglasses on the scale, which we never like.
We got, you know what though? You got to understand your fighter. I can't knock him for wearing sunglasses on the
No,
scales anymore because he
he's so
does it
cool.
every damn time.
Yeah, he's so cool. He is so cool about it. I think that there's some value. We were just talking about it before the pod. I think there's some value on just maybe as a parlay piece. It's a little chalky, obviously, on the fight, just to simply not even start round 5 at minus 360. Right. So I know, like you said, it's a little chalky, but you can use that as a parlay piece, because I think that there's a finish in this fight. I don't think it sees the judges' scorecards. While I do think that there's certainly value in that kind of ticket. I just what was the tweet you sent me this week about Charles and his fights, the last like 14 fights? What was that tweet? Do you remember it?
I think it was something like only one of them had went
Over two and a half.
Yeah, exactly. I think that was the Tony fight.
To just the Tony fight. In his last 14 fights, Oliveira, only one, which was a Tony fight.
I could
has
see
been over two and a
what's
half
the
rounds.
line, like the over 1.5, or is it an over 2.5 at this point that you were looking at?
Right now, it's over 2.5 on FanDuel. I'm not sure which actually over and a half Clint was talking about it, actually. Which one were you talking about?
Yeah, so it looks
'Cause
like
on DraftKings, we
they've
have
got it set at
alternate.
1.5.
You
Oh,
have
I'm
one and a
sorry.
half.
That's the wrong fight. Let me
No
let me
worries.
get my shit together here.
Because on DraftKings, we get alternate ones. So you can bet over 1.5, 2.5, 3.5.
Yeah. So they've got 1.5 on DraftKings right now, minus 165 to the over 1.5. And honestly, I like that a lot.
Yeah.
I did that with the geez, giving me PTSD here. I did that with Conor McGregor and Dustin Poirier, and that was when I needed, like a half second to get out of round 1, and then Conor's leg snapped in half.
Yeah.
I like that probably here in this spot, the over 1.5. And I know some people that are super bullish on the over 2.5, and that line is getting smoked. But plus 110 for the over 2.5 doesn't sound crazy to me. And then getting like what I like to do, you guys, I don't know if you remember, is those ladders. You go over 1.5, 2.5, 3.5, 4.5, sprinkle fight goes the distance. And then you just sweat your ass off. Bigger bet up front load it. So as long as the 1.5 clears, you're good to go. And then every single round that you get by is just a little bit of cash on the top of it. This might be the kind of fight to do that with, because like I said, these guys have that deadly power that this thing could be over in the first 30 seconds, and I could just flush that all down the toilet. Yeah. But this also could be a very high-level technical championship-style fight where these guys feel each other out for a full 25 minutes. And even if it ends in the 4th round or something like that, you cash 3 out of the 4, 3 out of the 5 props, you're still having a good night. So I'm not sure what I'm doing yet on this main event, but if you want a sweat, this is the way to do it. You'll lose 10 pounds by the end of the fight, but if you want to sweat out every second of this main event, this is the way to bet it.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, you're 100% right. It's certainly one of those fights that where you kind of say, like, if you really want to sweat, feel free to lay some big money on this fight. I may kind of stay off in a major way, just because I really do want to enjoy this fight, especially from a spectator standpoint. But instead of that fight and to not start round 5, I kind of like what you were saying, Clint. How about maybe the fight just to start round 2 in general? Because that, when you start that second round, it gets so scary for me, that those 6th and 7th minute. So minus 260 to start round 2. Just give me 5 minutes, and maybe a little parlay action. But I guess it's that first 5 minutes is going to be fucking nuts, huh?
Absolutely.
It really is. It really is. So I don't know. I might just one wise man once said, might just be popping popcorn. I don't know.
Yeah, so that'll bring us on to our next fight here. We have the second, or maybe the first in sequence title fight. The women's strawweight up for grabs here. We got Rose Namajunas versus Carla, the Cookie Monster Esparza. I just found out this week that we actually share a birthday, me and Carla. So that, and I tend to have a little bit of
cookies.
I I tend to have a bit of like anti-Rose bias, so like I'm trying to correct the steering wheel a bit here. But I will say, like, picking Zhang to have some success wrestling and then being there live and kind of like scoring those first 3 rounds for Zhang, watching in attendance, like, and then I could definitely see the argument for round 2 and all that on rewatch. So I understand it, but it was emotional in the moment. So now I'm coming back around. It's like, damn, well, Carla Esparza, she takes advantage of like all those same holes and reasons why I was thinking, like, Rose can be ground out, the cardio, stuff like that. And then I go back and it's like watching Carla in round 3 versus Alexa Grasso, just completely gassed out and like nearly KO'd. On a couple occasions there. And then you see her like getting controlled in other fights in like a 4-fight stretch from like Calvillo all the way through it was the fight against because Suarez. So like she had like a 4-fight stretch there where she was just getting controlled for extended stretches. So I love her offensive wrestling and her grinding out, but I don't love the cardio or the defense. If the tables turn and you see Rose in the later rounds against Zhang this time, the cardio was there. She was able to turn the tide. She's able to get the top position and ride it out. Carla is going to be the smaller fighter here, and I think Rose has really filled out physically in the time since their first matchup and expanded her skill set a lot more. Every time I keep on wanting to go back and take Carla, and I see the line keep getting wider and wider on Rose, and now it's Carla plus 175, and like part of me wants to go back and take Carla, but like I also don't want to be parlaying Rose here just because I do think that there is a good chance she could lose a few rounds here and make it sketchy again. So ultimately, I think Guru was onto something here, and I think we might have found something interesting. Why don't you let them know about it, Guru?
Oh, geez,
I'm interested.
That's a lot of pressure. No, so one of the interesting things about Carla, right? She's got a lot of things going on professionally, personally this week, this month. Like I don't like to do too much of that capping, but she's got her husband's or fiance's birthday. She's got Mother's Day, which whatever. She's got her wedding next week and her honeymoon the week after. Oh, and this major title fight with Rose Namajunas, no big deal or anything. So like she's got her plate really full. I'm not really sure if that was like she didn't change the wedding. Like, so I give her the props. That's just a lot going on. I brought this up to TB earlier as well. There's a lot of strawweights missing from Carla Esparza's resume. Like a lot of the top strawweights. I don't have the text exactly of who I had brought up, but there's literally a ton. Like Jessica, one of the major ones that came to my mind, of course, was like Jessica Andrade. Like she hasn't fought somebody that like is physically going to push. She hasn't fought Weili Zhang as well. Like, she hasn't fought somebody that's going to like really physically hurt her in that respect, or threaten the some takedown stuffing as well. One of the things that I saw in the Weili Zhang fight with Rose, though, for example, is that Weili got those takedowns, but the way Rose got up was she was able to like sweep using like jujitsu and kind of get up. I do wonder if Carla will be able to control her, but the problem with Carla is she doesn't do any damage. And like in the rounds that she's winning, like if she takes a minute and a half of a beating, like big strikes, bam, 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 and she gets a good takedown and sits on top for 3 minutes of top control, but like does nothing with it in her Carla Esparza way. You watch in the Marina Rodriguez fight, her eye is like a balloon, Ariel. Like, she gets beat up by Marina Rodriguez from top, and Marina is tired, but like perfectly fine. You're not gonna steal a belt that way. From at least in the judge's eyes, I don't think. You're gonna have to get a finish. And on the other side, I think I think Rose could end up, hurting her badly, taking her into deep waters and getting a finish. So I think that this fight doesn't go the distance at plus 130 is or plus 120 at least is the way to go. Because I don't think this will see the judges' scorecards.
I don't mind that one bit. We've seen that Carla Esparza has been a decent bit more dangerous on the mat recently. Her TKO in her last fight, bloody pictures with her elbow afterward, freaking awesome. She's stepped up. She stepped it up, absolutely. And this is a spot where we absolutely know that Rose is more than capable of head kicking someone into oblivion. So the finishing upside is there. It's just crazy to me that we get pretty much even money on the smallest fighters possible. Like, women's 115 is as small as it gets in the UFC. So it's kind of crazy to think that we're not getting a better number on a finish there. I know there's some history there to go with that, but I would be looking for, plus 200 or something like that. I would want a much juicier number. Maybe it does finish. I mean, it probably does finish one way or the other, but I mean, this being a rematch, I can also see it
plus 160. Shave off that extra 2.5 minutes.
Yeah, if you wanted to go that route, for sure. I just, the way I see this fight playing out, Carla is really going to have to go to the well with that grappling. She's going to have to go to the well with that top control. She's not someone that you can take lightly in the grappling department. I mean, Carla's only been submitted one time, and it was all the way back in 2010, like her third or fourth professional fight ever. So even though Rose is incredible on the ground, like, I don't know that I'm necessarily expecting her to get a submission. And Rose, I think she's in her prime. She's the younger fighter here. And I know a lot of really smart people on the Carla Esparza side of things. I came into this kind of expecting to lay the hammer on Rose and being like, minus 200 is a cheap price tag on the champion who's in her prime, who's going to be the next Ronda Rousey, the next Anderson Silva. That's kind of what I expected. And people are poking holes in my arguments left and right this week. It's all Carla love all the time. Wow. And a lot of people are citing things like Rose's inability to, get up. And you look at like Weili Zhang and stuff like that. Yeah, and Carla's a much better wrestler than Weili Zhang is. That I kind of get it. And pre-tape, my initial inclination was Carla Esparza. So honestly, guys, I'm going to say Rose right now. I said Rose on the Monday show. I got some homework to do. Like, I'm going to go back the next day or two, and I'm going to rewatch all the grappling transitions for Rose in her last couple of fights and just do the legwork here, because there's too many smart people that I respect betting on the Carla Esparza side of things that feel like it's fairly obvious that I'm like, I must have missed something. And then I can come back on Friday, Saturday and say definitively I was wrong or I disagree.
Right. I just think, and I think this is wise, other than Tatiana Suarez, who is not relevant. There is nobody in the division, really almost in women's MMA, that wrestles like this. This style of chain wrestling is incredible. she was I forgot which fight. She was totally beat on the position. She gets stuffed to take the girl stuffed to take down completely, and she completely came back again with another
She just
takedown
pushes through.
got it, and it was just so impressive. But shout out to Schwan who really said it. He said what did he say? He said Carla is the best at beating the positions, and Rose is the best at like beating you to the positions, and Rose is the best at like fighting through them. It was just I forgot what he said. It was really just a very articulate point. Shout out Schwan. He said it in the lab. That was really stupid of me. So shout out Schwan. Whatever he said, it was way smarter than whatever I said. So.
Well, yeah. Anyways, I feel like ultimately I just don't. I don't come away with like the biggest play on this fight, and I did lean Carla kind of like pre-tape and pre-everything on like the research this week. I just think, you know, I can ultimately see either fighter getting a finish here, and I could see it going the distance too. So, I don't have the like a huge play on this fight, and I think something might pop up on the Bet MMA later in the week as it goes, but at least for now.
I do think a couple things that are interesting is right. The younger fighter usually wins a fair amount of the time, and then and especially in women's MMA, when you have size, length, and reach, you win a fair amount of the time. So I think those things are
the only
interesting.
problem for me with that stat, and I quoted the younger fighter winning also on my show, guys, because I think that's a real thing. Age, father time, it comes at us like a bitch in the fight game. But the height and the reach thing, the problem with that is that doesn't mean shit to grapplers. So like Rose being taken down, all of a sudden that advantage is out the window. So with Carla Esparza, we got to put a little asterisk next to that because it may not matter as much.
I think only so much in like with wrist controls a little bit more difficult when you're giving up, more reach. And then as far as controlling and passing guard with like the longer legs and stuff, because I do think Rose showed like a little bit more urgency and not letting some passes happen as the fight went on. So I do trust her at least in that regard to try and fight like to get away from any of the damaging positions that like Yan Xiaonan was in. But the cardio in bottom position continually fighting of Carla, I don't trust Carla's gas tank to really ride it out all the way through, I guess is what I keep on coming back to. But
I think if you like Rose, the play on double chance, Rose KO or decision -140, I think that's really fucking fair. Because like we were
That'll bring the price
discussing,
down.
you're not gonna. And by the way, there was just a boost released on whatever, but Rose by submission. So I love fading those fucking
yeah,
boosts that those books
well,
offer. So I really like. I actually kind of, if you like Rose, I actually really like KO or decision -140.
Yep. All right. Well, hey, here we go. We're on to our next fight here. We got Michael Chandler versus Tony Ferguson. This one should be like the people's main event. I mean, as far as entertainment goes, Michael Chandler knows how to bring a fight. Tony Ferguson, we've seen him in how many extended wars and drawn out battles. And man, I mean, the way that Tony Ferguson has been losing his past couple fights, I don't think Michael Chandler is going to be that guy to go out there and put up a high control rate with extended amounts of takedowns and chain wrestling. And I think he might mix in a little something here or there. He did shoot a few on Justin Gaethje unsuccessfully, but ultimately, yeah, I mean, the question comes down to like, is Michael Chandler going to put Tony Ferguson out of it in the first round, or is this fight going to extend out and turn into one of those wars? I think it being a 3-round fight, it might be a little bit more difficult for Tony Ferguson to get like that late push that he's normally looking for. But he does have a 5-inch reach advantage, 3-inch height advantage. And he does seem to be coming back with a little bit of a vengeance here and looks in great shape. I do think the line is a little bit wonky if you're not expecting Michael Chandler to just like wrestle here. So that's where I do think like Michael Chandler, he probably should win this fight. But like Tony Ferguson as what, a plus 290 right now. I mean, I'm getting a little bit of a feeling here. I mean, Guru, reel me back in if you think I'm talking a little crazy. But what are you saying?
Yeah, I'm not. I love Tony. I just think at this stage in his career, what he showed in his last 3 fights, it's very, very difficult to take him at this stage. Yes, he's fighting the absolute best lightweights in the world. Justin Gaethje knocking him out in round 5, doctor stoppage round 5. The the only man to survive Charles Oliveira in the last 14 of his fights, like we were discussing, and Beneil Dariush just putting on a wrestling clinic against him. Ferguson was talking about, having maybe the wrong mentality or wrong people in his corners, like his boxing coach telling him not to throw jabs, but to also knock the guy out. Like, just he seemed very confused.
Who the fuck is his boxing coach?
Yeah, I don't know. He was very, it was. I don't know, but I guess the guy's not in his fucking corner anymore. I watched his whole thing, and obviously any Tony, it was so funny. Any Tony Ferguson interview is interesting, but he got really emotional when bringing up the Dana White privilege thing. He's like, it's not funny. And he almost was like tearing. Like he was like, he feels legitimately disrespected by the UFC. He feels used by the UFC. And you can't not but feel kind of bad for the guy, but feelings don't really have a place in this gambling aspect. I don't think Tony Ferguson snaps his losing streak here. I do think he snaps his round losing streak. I think he's able to snag one here. I think he snags a round. I think Chandler wins a 29-28 decision. And there's my bet. I think this fight goes the distance at plus money. We made money betting the Gaichi Chandler fight going the distance, and I feel of a similar ilk in this situation. You watched Ferguson and Gaichi go a while. You watched you watched Gaichi and Chandler go a while. You watched Ferguson and Oliveira go a while. Like, I don't. Why is the narrative? What the people are talking about is the fight being this barn burner crazy finish. Let's reel it in for a second and try to close out the outside noise. These guys are coming in for a war, super prepared. Their careers on the line. I don't think that anybody's getting sparked in 7 minutes here. Like, I think they're going to be ready for war on one level, but again, like, I think Chandler's going to be more reserved to the best he can. If he's going to have to, the thing is he's going to have to wrestle because Tony's going to be too long. Otherwise, he's going to get into a fight that Tony likes, and it's going to make Tony way closer than the odds are. And that is the truth. I'm going to be circling Michael Chandler. But like we like to say on the show, grandma's couch cushions, that's Tony Ferguson time for sure. But again, I don't like this fight by finish. I like the distance. I really do. It's probably on a really exciting but kind of sketchy card. That probably is my favorite bet of the night. What do you think, Clint?
Well, I agree with you. Especially when you said that Tony is going to catch a round here. Not only is he going to catch a round, guys, he's going to catch a body. I got 2 units on Tony Ferguson at plus 320. This line is absolute madness, boys. You realize that when they opened this bad boy up, it was Chandler minus 150.
Wow.
Chandler minus 150, and it got smoked all the way to minus 400. Are you kidding me?
Yeah.
This is the definition of a value bet. I'm getting shades of my Aljamain Sterling pick, where I said, you know what? The first time that fight was lined, it was pick 'em minus 110 on either side because that fight could have gone either way. And now we're getting plus 400 on the dog. Gimme. Same situation here. Just because everyone is so biased against Tony right now, they have loaded up hand over fist to pile in on this man against him. And while I do, to a certain degree, get it, I understand, and I would say Chandler is deserving of being the favorite, maybe minus 200. You know what I mean? Like something like that would make a little bit more sense. Minus 400 is insanity to me. It's borderline disrespectful of what Tony Ferguson is capable of doing. And if you go back and you look at his recent run, everyone's calling Tony Ferguson shot to bits. He's got nothing left. Did you guys watch the same fights that I did? Because I saw 2 people who are maybe the worst matchups possible for Tony Ferguson. He didn't look great against Beneil Dariush, but Dariush is one of the best grapplers in the division. 21-4. Dude's been around forever. Outside of getting starched by Edson Barboza and Alexander Hernandez, who caught him with his pants down in that very first round, nobody's touched this man for years. So yeah, he was able to lay on Tony Ferguson for 15 minutes, and lay on him he did. Like, it was not overly impressive. He took him down. He did what he had to do. He got his hand raised. And the same thing with Charles Oliveira. And I know you listened to that interview, but Tony talked about he wanted to be a company man. He took that fight on short notice. He didn't do any grappling training for that fight. That's the first fight that we realized Charles Oliveira had a top game. Like, nobody knew Charlie had a top game before that fight. He just sat on Tony's chest. Charlie just nullified the jujitsu. It was very defensive, one step ahead of you grappling, never threatening, never going for offense. It was just holding Tony down. I don't really think either of those fights have anything to do with this one. Do we think Michael Chandler is going to body lock and take Tony Ferguson down? Maybe once. Maybe once. Does he have the type of wrestling top game and 15 minutes worth of gas, as well as the jiu-jitsu to stay one step ahead of Tony Ferguson on the mat? I don't think so. Does Michael Chandler have the chance to nuke him in round one? Yeah, he can do that. But Michael Chandler, now, don't lynch me for this one, folks, but I bet against Michael Chandler against Dan Hooker. I bet against Michael Chandler with Ben Henderson. Like, he was able to starch those two guys early, right? Like, caught everybody with their pants down. But then he takes a step up and fights Charles Oliveira, which we've noticed now that Dan Hooker, there's a significant gap between Dan Hooker and Charlie O. So he gets up against Charles Oliveira, rocks him in the first, can't quite get it done. And then he's got nothing left to give. He goes out and he puts a war on with Justin Gaethje. I talked about that being fight of the year. But if you go back and you watch that fight, like I said, Justin felt no danger. Justin was in control of that fight for the whole thing, except for that very first round. He ate a couple big shots, and then it was all Justin from that point on. So how competitive is the 36-year-old Michael Chandler at the deep end of the UFC's level at 155? A guy that's been KO'd in the first round twice, finished in the second round twice, dropped a split decision to Eddie Alvarez back in the day. I mean, he fought some guys in Bellator that are old, over the hill, not that good, got finished by the good guys, and now he's getting finished by the best guys in the UFC. Guys, I think Tony is massively live in this spot. I think that Tony can out-grapple him, because I don't expect him to be able to do that wrestling blanket top control thing. And Arizona fans are the worst. They will boo the shit out of him if he tries that. And he will score no points on the judges' scorecards. And may God have mercy on your soul, because you won't be doing a damn thing. And if he comes out looking to kill Tony, that's the other thing. I'm going to go back to that shot narrative with Tony Ferguson. I talked about this on my podcast. I got a little flack for it. But guys, Tony didn't ever go down against Justin Gaethje. He took 5 rounds of punishment.
Yeah.
And someone was like, bro, he had to like shake his head out because his brain was rattled. Like,
well, that's why he stopped. That's why Herb stopped the fight. Yeah.
Yeah, but he didn't go down.
No.
Like, if Herb doesn't step in there, Tony goes 3 more minutes. That thing goes the distance. This man has taken a beating, or can take a beating, better than anybody we've ever seen. You don't finish Tony Ferguson. I know that Michael Chandler can hit like a tank, but unless, and I'm putting a massive line through that Justin Gaethje stoppage, because again, it was a mercy killing deep in round 5.
Yeah.
Nobody has ever finished Tony Ferguson, as far as I'm concerned. If Justin Gaethje goes out there, I'm sorry, not Justin Gaethje, they're the same person. If Michael Chandler goes out there and goes for broke in that first round, he's going to gas himself. And then he's going to be a sitting duck, and he's going to go through the blender that is Tony Ferguson's elbows. And if he comes out with a different game plan, and he doesn't fight like himself, and he tries to take this thing into deep waters, Tony's a much slicker striker at range. Tony can kick, Tony can jab, Tony can roll. If we mix in the ground game, again, I'm not expecting blanket control. Maybe he scores some takedowns. I'd expect Tony to reverse this guy. I'd expect Tony to lock up a triangle. Tony will be threatening from that bottom position. I really think that people have gone way overboard on this betting
They
line.
have.
And if you're laying minus 400 or parlaying Michael Chandler, be forewarned, the bed will be shit in. I think Tony Ferguson stands a very good chance of winning this fight, and I wouldn't be surprised if he got it done inside the distance.
Yeah, listen, to your point, you can get Tony Ferguson round 2 plus 2,200, Tony Ferguson round 3 plus 2,900. I think those things are super interesting.
I think it goes
Again,
over 1.5, though. I'll say
over
that.
1.5.
I do think it goes over 1.5.
So hey, round 3 plus 2,900, or I was just looking at that before. You can get Tony Ferguson round 3 or decision plus 550. That's not bad either. If you like, listen, if you like any of that, that's money. That's all good. The one thought I also had, if you do like Michael Chandler, similarly, is hey, what if I told you could get Michael Chandler time machine money line minus 260? Would you be interested? Maybe.
No.
Okay. No,
that's still too high for me. Like,
still too high.
I would probably just pass. Like that's in that ballpark where I'm going, price is too high.
Okay.
Not enough juice on the dog. I'm just going to skip out.
Because at minus 260, you get Chandler at KO or decision because he's not submitting Tony Ferguson. So that we can erase, and it cuts your minus 400 favorite to a minus 260.
Yeah, I mean, if you're playing Chandler,
that's the way to do it.
That's the move. You're cutting that price tag in half. So if you do like that side, that's the way to go.
That's why I wanted to bring it up.
All right. Well, I think that brings us on to our next fight, and
we were deep on those, but to me that's 3 straight main events of any fight. So like I'm very happy to dig deeper into those.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, and that's kind of why we like leading off with it, because if you're just pulling this up and oh man, the fights are coming on soon, I got to find out. All right, well, you got right into main event and you got right down to business, and now we're getting right into some like legends categories fights here. We got Mauricio Shogun Hua versus Ovince St. Prue. I mean, putting in the stats for these guys, you see 18 fights for Hua, 24 for St. Prue. And these guys go back, and I mean that doesn't even count all the pride stuff and everything else. Like, Hua is one of those legends of the game. And St. Prue, I mean, he's been around, and they're talking about renaming chokes in his honor, because I mean that's the type of mark he's made at his his light heavyweight run in the UFC. I think what was interesting, seeing him get out to Vegas a little bit early, do a little cross training at Extreme Couture, seeing Ovince St. Prue in a really nice shape this week. Mauricio Shogun Hua talking about a couple more fights, 2 more fights at this point. Right. I mean, we'll see how it goes. I'm not too excited to see it, given how the last one went against Paul Craig, and that's
Paul
really...
Craig. Paul Craig.
Thanks, Guru. But ultimately, I just think like Ovince St. Prue, like minus 240. Yeah, I do think he's gonna win. It's just like, damn, man, it's a lot of juice to lay on someone that has shown to just like death gas and not really like finish out fights with points. And they did fight before, and he had a nice round 1 knockout, but is he gonna get a repeat? I mean, you saw Shogun get hurt even against Nogueira, where he gets a split decision win. I mean, he gets hurt once again on the feet, and it's kind of questionable who actually wins that fight. You'd like to think that Ovince St. Prue can do it. And if he does, a plus 225 by knockout is what I'm going to ride with, because for a minus 260, like, I don't think he's going to submit Shogun. I think he's going to hurt him. And yeah, I mean, then you could get him to shell up and pull something off. I don't think he's going to be like jumping on his back, or I think gassing out with those takedowns last time with Tanner Boser too. Now he's in a lot better shape, cutting down to the light heavyweight. So maybe he's got a little more gas tank to work some wrestling, but I just think Shogun is so hurtable on the feet at this point. So you might as well take that route, and plus 225, give me the knockout. Guru, what do you think about this one?
This fight would be amazing if it was like 7 years ago. It's listen, I'm still excited to see it. I thought Shogun had retired, and then I guess he did retire, but it came or maybe he didn't. We all thought he retired. I always thought the Paul Craig fight was like a send-off. But anyway, it didn't really go very well at all. Really either Paul Craig fight, honestly. But especially that second one. And he gets taken down by Paul Craig. Paul Craig. And Paul's not really known for
Too
being
good at
a.
that.
Yes. um, I don't think he's really known for being a very good wrestler. So if Paul Craig is taking you down, that's really not a very good sign. And while my boy TB happened to mention OSP at plus 250, you know, why not? Can he? I mean, Chael Sonnen choked him out, guillotine in 2013. Why not OSP by submission by the OSP choke at plus 300? Like, or, you can just take OSP by finish at, I guess it's at minus 115. I don't love that as much. I really, the problem with OSP is he's basically a fade against anybody at this point, I guess, except the 42-year-old Shogun. Who is he? 42? He's 40. He's like that Jose Aldo who's like, he feels like he's a million years old, but now like it's just because he's been fighting for 25 years. What up, Lou? Way too much sexy on the screen. Yeah, we got a lot of good smiles on the screen. I don't know what's happening, but the thing with OSP is he, right? He, in his last fight, he shows up at 200. It's a heavyweight fight against Tanner Boser. He shows up at 230 pounds, and he gets knocked out by Boser, who's not necessarily known for knocking people out. Like, that's not a very great look. We've seen OSP, cash in his chips and not really care too much. You saw him get kind of standing TKO'd against Jamal Hill. That's really more him being tired and shit. That wasn't great. The split decision loss to Ben Rothwell isn't good. Getting subbed by Nikita Krylov isn't great either. Like, he's not afraid to lose a damn fight. So is this on some level a winnable fight for Shogun? Sure, why not? Any version of OSP could show up. But we did a little bit of IG capping, and OSP is at Extreme Couture training with like Sean Strickland and just getting that work in. And he looked, I don't know, he's posted some pad work like 5 days ago. He looks in good shape. Like, I don't know if I'm getting catfished or not, but I'm like, bet, I'm sold. So I'm good. I'm good picking OSP. I'm not trying to lay crazy hard on money. Maybe I'll go grandma's couch cushions for an OSP sub bet. But yeah, I'm not interested in the dog here. What do you think, Clint?
I was extremely interested in the dog at first, you guys, just because OSP is on my top tier fade list. Like you
Right.
mentioned, this guy cashes his chips out and he goes home. He takes his ball when he's done playing and he says, F you guys, I'm going home. Like,
Yeah, I'm going home.
Screw you guys.
Yes.
Yeah, man. He just he folds. Like, this guy just completely folds, and I do not bet on people that do that. I mean, if you get caught once, if you tap, whatever, that's part of the game. But if you fold over, no, we're done. Like, so I can't bet on Ovince St. Prue in good conscience. Now, he should win this fight. He's far younger. Technically speaking, he's in better shape. He's a guy that could moonlight up at heavyweight, facing a guy that realistically, if he was, in shape in his prime, he could be a 185 or maybe. Like, there's a lot of reasons why Ovince St. Prue should win this fight. The problems that I have is statistically Mauricio Shogun, who is the better striker. If you go back and watch those Paul Craig fights, Mauricio Shogun, who reverses Paul Craig and gets top control. If you watch the Shogun or the OSP fights, he gets exhausted after one round. If you don't sit at exactly kicking range for this man, he gets tired. And then if you close the pocket and you punch him in the mouth, he goes home. So I kind of want to bet Shogun by knockout here, just as a straight up fade on this man, and the fact that he's willing to get the fuck out of there. And this is a rematch for Shogun, looking to, right a loss that he had. That realistically, that's like the Conor Aldo KO, where I'm like, I want to run that back. I want to see what happens if it goes more than 60 seconds. So I kind of like Shogun here. I'm probably not gonna bet it, but it's hard for me not to look at a plus 200 dog, and it's even harder for me not to look at a plus 450 KO prop.
You know what's so funny, Tim? I was just thinking that. I'm like, I'm literally ripping on Shogun, but OSP is literally 39 years old. And holy shit, look at that. UFC Fight Night 56, November 2014. OSP wins by knockout in 34 seconds against Shogun. Wow.
It was like a flash knockout. He catches him coming in. It was almost, like I said, reminiscent of the
That was a
Conor knockout.
headliner.
It was a hook. He just walked in, faded away, got him bink, and the ref stepped in and stopped it. Like that was it.
Got
It
out
was
Robin
super
Black.
fast.
Wow. And that was the main event. You know who, I'll bet you 100 grand. I will bet you 100 grand. You can't guess who was the opener of that card.
Oh God. No, I have no idea. There's too many names, too many obscure fighters that it could possibly be that far back.
100 grand. It was Colby Covington. Covington opened the prelims versus Wagner Silva.
Wow,
That's
would
crazy.
you look at that?
Yeah, so 100 grand. I'll keep it. Yeah. So I totally get it. This is another one of those fights where it's the line could be a little wide, or yeah, I get it. I think OSP is probably a little too heavy-handed for him. You're right. You're right. He takes his ball, goes home. He can gas out. It's gonna be an interesting one. I should be fairly blitzed at that point, so I'll be excited. It should be a good time.
That's a guarantee. I can
Yes,
I
it
can
is.
confirm that. So
One real quick before we move on, one thing that I did notice is if you go back and you watch Shogun's last couple of fights, obviously the Paul Craig one, he wasn't looking to get too involved, but like the Rogerio Nogueira one, again, not a great example because it's two old dinosaurs fighting at that point, but Shogun was shooting takedowns. Like Shogun was actually looking in to take Hua to the mat. He did not do well.
Don't want to do that with OSP, right?
Well, he got 2 of 4. Honestly, though, you kind of do. Because again, OSP gasses, guys. He gasses bad. So if you get in, crash the pocket, punch him in the mouth, if you force him to wrestle, he just gives up. Like, unless you let this guy kick you from outside, or unless he is in top position, if they get into a wrestling scramble and he ends up on top, that's when he's good with his jiu-jitsu. But if he's not on top, he's got nothing. And honestly, are we expecting a Von Prue against Shogun? Come on. Like you're not gonna tap Shogun with a Von. I don't care how old he is. He's not getting Von Flute. So maybe rear naked choked or something in a scramble. I'm just saying that the longer this fight goes, even though Shogun is a gassy dinosaur, like I like him better the deeper this fight gets. It might be a good live bet spot. Maybe you jump on Hua after that first round if it looks like Ovince Prue had some early success, but they survived because OSP just falls off a cliff.
Yeah, he definitely can. It's true.
Yeah, I feel like the most likely sub for him in this type of spot would be like you hurt him and Shogun shoots for that takedown. It's like a guillotine type of spot because I don't see any other way. Like you're right. Like Shogun is just one of those next level grapplers as far as that goes. So it's not like, oh, I'm holding on to a guillotine even though this guy's in half inside control. Yeah, that's not happening.
But in that,
so we got this next fight here. I mean, I feel like they pulled up a lot of vets for this card.
Big name value.
Yeah, I mean, once again, now I talked just in the last fight about how many UFC fights they had. Donald Cerrone, 37 fights to enter into the stat database, and you got Joe Lozon, 21. So it's like, oh my goodness, like we are really getting in deep this week as far as like experience and I mean UFC history. I mean, Donald Cerrone, he's been up at welterweight his last I think it's been 3 fights now. It was against Morono, Pettis, and McGregor. Before that, it was Gaichi back in 2019, Ferguson. So yeah, he hasn't been at that lightweight mark in quite a bit here, and he was having a bit of a tough cut if memory serves well, looking like Skeletor on the scales a little bit. So I think that's one of the things I'm most looking forward to later in the week here is to just kind of see like, all right, Donald Cerrone, you got a full training camp. So how do you look now at 39 years old, still at lightweight?
Looks old.
Yeah. So I mean, damn, like I'm very curious, like. How drained are you? Are you gonna look good? Because Joe Lozon, I mean, he's had a little bit of time away now. He hasn't even fought since 2019. So, he was really not looking so great, taking a bunch of damage from Grutzmacher on the feet, from Clay Guida on the feet. So it just leads me to believe if Donald Cerrone is able to get to the game plan he wants, and with his takedown defense and overall grappling game, like you would imagine that Donald Cerrone is going to get this fight where he wants it, and he could win in the clinch. He can win from distance. Statistically, I mean, he should be able to win this fight just about no matter where it goes. So ultimately, the question is, how are you going to look on the scales, Donald Cerrone? Because at minus 180, 39 years old, and 37 UFC fights, I mean, it doesn't take much for, he's talking about which guys are going to be showing up in the walkout. Is it, am I going to be like, oh, I don't want to be there today? Or is it going to be like, oh, I'm like there for my son and like, super excited. Like there's a couple conversations he's having where it's like, makes you wonder where he's at on a day-to-day basis. So at minus 180 for Donald Cerrone at this point, for the love of God, I do not want to touch that. But you say knockout at plus 180. All right. I mean, I could at least,
knockout at plus 240, my friend.
Oh, FanDuel?
Yeah.
Ooh. So yeah,
Knockout at
even
plus
more
240.
value because I think if anything,
Because of course FanDuel gives you the crazy ass line.
Yeah.
Or like
exactly.
Donald Cerrone by decision at plus 340 is still nuts to me.
I totally see that. It's just like Lozon, like I don't know if he's got the staying power.
Lozon's, you have to remember this though. Lozon's last win, while it was against JSP in 2019, that was a mythical fighter. Joe Lozon in Boston is a mythical fighter. So that was, and he was kind of supposed to be his retirement fight. He was supposed to retire before that. This was kind of supposed to be a retirement fight. And he's like, if something crazy, I remember kind of hearing him say, it's like, if the right perfect opportunity comes up, I'll take it. But otherwise, I'm not fighting. And you see that this fight was not, he hadn't had another fight scheduled and canceled or something. Like, no, he was just chilling. And now this is the fight they make. And the big concern, for Donald, as always, and it's gotten worse as he's gotten older, is his striking defense. It's obvious. He gets hit way, way too much. He used to younger. He gets hit way, way too much now. Problem with Lozon is his striking is fairly anemic, right? We look at up here. He's never really been known for knocking people out. That's not his thing, right? His last win was a ground and pound finish versus Takanori Gomi in 2015. Right, like that. It's you look at his stats. He lands 3 strikes a minute and absorbs nearly 6. This is a chance for Donald Cerrone to get back on the right track. So yeah, I do like Donald here. You do kind of worry a little bit about the scales, especially moving down. But you figure with a full fight camp, which is like so weird for Donald because he's like the short notice king back in the day. With his son there, he got extremely emotional this week talking about his son, because again, remember last time he was winning fights, it was new dad Cerrone. Now Cerrone's a dad that his son is like, can be cognizant enough to understand what his dad does. So when bringing that up, Donald was really, really emotional. And wants to really show his son what it means to be a man, his values, all those kind of whatever weird macho things. I respect it. It's cool. But yeah, I think Donald does show up, and I think he gets a good opportunity against somebody that's probably not going to hurt him on the feet in Lozon. So what do you think, Mr. Diehard?
I think you guys kind of nailed it, except one of the very first bet that I made, the second bet that I made on this card was the under 2.5 in this spot at minus 155. I like violence here. Joe Lozon is a guy who historically has been a killer be killed fighter. Like he bum rushes his opponent and puts them 6 feet under, or he doesn't quite get the job done and gets caved in himself. Now, Donald Cerrone is a guy who usually is a bit of a slow starter. If he finds that perfect shot, then he'll put you out, but not necessarily the biggest finisher on the block unless you provide him the opportunity. Well, Joe understands the assignment, folks. He talked in an interview about understanding that Donald Cerrone is a slow starter, and he feels like if he gets out there and he cracks him hard and early, he can put him away.
You can.
Both these guys have durability concerns. I'm worried about Donald Cerrone going back down to 155 at this stage of his career after a long layoff. He always talked about how painful and how draining and how bad that cut was. He is not going to enjoy that cut this time around again. And Joe Lozon coming off a long layoff, this guy already being kind of a one-round or bust type of fighter, if he doesn't get Donald Cerrone out of there in round 1, and trust me, based on what he's saying, he's bringing the heat, I think Donald destroys him. Like if Donald gets out of that first round, I don't know that Joe's going to leave himself much left in the tank. And Donald Cerrone fighting for his son, looking to go out on a high note for his retirement. He's not going to look to kickbox for 10 minutes and ease his way out of there. He's going to try to kill Joe Lozon. So I think the under 2.5 violence fight doesn't go the distance. That's going to be the best spot for me on this card. I do think that Donald Cerrone is probably the guy that wins this fight. But like I said, Joe Lozon is coming in hot in that first round. And with what we've seen from Donald Cerrone, he has to taste his own blood before he wakes up. So
coming in hot.
Joe round 1 KO at 15-1 doesn't sound bad as a sprinkle to me. But after round 1 gets done, it's anybody's fight. And as long as someone goes to sleep, I don't care.
Yeah, that's an interesting way to handicap it. I certainly enjoy that. It's gonna be one of those interesting fights. I you can tell by the shirt. Love watching Donald fight. He's always an entertaining fight. So I'm certainly excited to see this one. I gotta Clint, I bet you $100,000 you can't guess when Joe Lozon made his debut.
You mean the year?
The fight, I guess we'll go the fight that he made, the fight night he made a debut on or pay-per-view, I guess.
Oh my God. See, I would have no idea, man, because I mean, I watched all those Ultimate Fighter episodes back in the day, and I remember when, the UFCs were named like Bad Blood and shit like that. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I have no idea what they called it back in the day.
He actually debuts right before joining Ultimate Fighter, but he debuts against Jens Pulver. He knocks him out in 50 seconds.
And then they made him go on the Ultimate Fighter. Like, what the hell is that? You get a short notice debut, knock out the champ, and then they put you on the Ultimate Fighter. Who was in charge of this guy's career?
Amazing. UFC 63, Hughes versus Penn. Amazing. 2006. This guy's been fighting forever. So I guess I still keep my $100,000. I'm up $200,000. I'm up 200 units, guys. Let's go.
Oh man, so let's see if Guru could keep the night rolling here. He's got candy bars on candy bars over here. So now we got Randy Brown versus Chaos Williams. This one, I'm excited. That I think that you saw Randy Brown kind of making progressions throughout his career as far as like his stand-up game. His defense, his patience. I mean, when you look at just like pure statistics, I mean, he's looking a lot better overall than Chaos Williams. I think one of the biggest things that I take away from Chaos Williams' overall game is how much more time he spends at distance. So even though you see a lot of green on the Randy Brown side, it's not so far off overall, the numbers for Chaos, and he's done it at a much like larger percentage of his total fight time. So I also think he presents much more stopping power as far as one punch goes on the feet. And I think some of those deficiencies that we saw as far as defensive grappling on the regional scene, they really haven't come to play out at the big scene, at the big stage here in the UFC. And Randy Brown, he does have a 23% overall control rate, but he only lands one takedown, not even one takedown per 15. And it's at 44%. So he shot a little bit more than one takedown per total fight in the UFC. I can't really 100% trust him to use that game plan. And even if he does get in those clinch positions, because you see he's got 4 minutes of control per total takedown, that more points out to the fact that he's getting control in other spaces than just takedowns. So that means, can he hold Chaos Williams up against the cage? I actually thought Chaos had really good strength in clinch positions and was able to reverse and get out when he gets put in those spots. And it's evidenced in his 5 total UFC fights, 42 minutes of fight time. He's only given up 3% of control and has 8% himself. And that's coming off of only, total takedown attempts between him and his opponents, Chaos Williams. There's only been 6 total in the UFC. So there's been a lot of, hey, I don't like fighting you at distance. I'm going to get real close, grab you, and try to hold you against the cage. And that just hasn't worked out well for the majority of Chaos's opponents. Randy Brown, he is going to be a little bit taller, but he only has a 1-inch reach advantage in this spot where he's used to having a much bigger size advantage and
Yeah.
a much bigger athleticism advantage as well. And Chaos Williams, if there's anything he could take away from Randy Brown's old tape, if you look at that Vicente Luque fight or just about any Randy Brown fight, those leg kicks are open all day. And Chaos Williams, you don't need to tell him twice to throw some leg kicks.
Mm-mm. And
So
what is
overall,
what?
I mean, like, damn, the line keeps closing. It's minus 125 Chaos and plus 105 Randy Brown. I might just keep waiting here and see if we get to evens here because I'm liking that Chaos side.
Yeah, I've been liking the Chaos side since the fight was opened, since they announced it. I find myself as kind of a, respectfully like a Randy Brown kind of like a hater. Never really been a fan. Again, and you look at his last 2 wins. You look at his last wins. Period. They're not in any sort of conversation. I really put Chaos Williams in respectfully. Like again, Chaos Williams still has a lot to show and grow, but like Jared Gordon, who I still love, who we talked about last week, but Alex Oliveira, Cowboy, a guy that will take his ball and go home. Warley Alves, Brian Barberena, like these guys. Yeah, these guys are vets, but they're long in the tooth. This is a guy in Chaos that's fresh, hungry, violent. He's somebody that like it just especially in the way that he fights, man. He's very explosive, high athleticism, which is a lot of what Randy Brown is as well. So he's used to being the more athletic guy. He's used to, like TB so well put, he's used to being the longer guy. Randy Brown is all legs. And his legs are skinny. They make John Jones's legs look fat. Chaos Williams is gonna kick through them shits. So
really funny actually is that Randy Brown has a 3-inch height advantage, but it's a 4.5-inch leg reach advantage just to add to your point and accentuate it further, Guru.
He's all
Continue
legs.
along.
No, thank you for bringing that up because I'm not smart enough to look at that. He's literally he's all legs, bro, and it's a problem. The one thing, he's only faced 4 takedowns and he's been taken down twice. I don't like to see that, but you're not gonna gamble on Randy Brown to all of a sudden put on his wrestling shoes. He's gonna stand in there and want to strike. He's gonna want to use his jab and try to keep the range because that's the kind of fighter that he is. He has an extremely wide stance too. It's very strange. Yeah, I'm not a Randy Brown fan, so I'm not taking him. So I'm on Chaos. I've been kind of waiting to see where all the lines kind of end up. I would love some plus money on Chaos Williams. Right now you have Chaos at minus 114 and Randy Brown minus 106 with no props on FanDuel, which is ridiculous. I don't know, stupidly, like I like almost kind of like the over plus 102 at 2.5, but like I don't, maybe not. I almost just kind of feel like a finish for Chaos is just kind of like overplayed. I don't know. What do you think, Clint?
I think it's Chaos or pass for me. I talked about this on my show that, quite frankly, I was very tempted on the Randy Brown side of this fight. I feel like maybe the wrong fighter is favored from a betting standpoint because Randy Brown has paid his dues at the UFC level. He's fought some really tough guys. He's gone through that adversity. He's learned. He's come back. He's got that point strike style that actually he's got some KO pop. He's got some power on his punches, but he likes to stay safe and play at range. The big cage is really going to help him do that, especially against a power puncher like Chaos Williams. I think that the line is backwards. I think that Randy Brown probably should be favored here. And a lot of people are getting enamored with Chaos Williams punching power. The fact that he was able to close the show last time out against Miguel Baeza. But if you look at the guys that he's clipped and KO'd, people that are questionable, Abdul Razak Al Hassan when he was in free fall, Matt Semmelsberger, a guy who not a lot of experience. We had serious questions about him and has been, finished in all of his losses. And then Miguel Baeza, a guy who myself and most people felt like was very chinny and just needed one more tap in the right spot to go down. So we can poke some holes in the resume of Chaos Williams. That said, I'm a Chaos truther. I love this guy. Absolutely love this guy. And he's getting better every single time we see him. I think the leg kicks could play a big part in this fight. And if you guys have done your Instagram stalking, he's taken photos with Justin Gaichi in Denver, Colorado. If you're looking for leg kicks, if you're looking for the right game plan, Trevor Whitman and Justin Gaethje are going to teach this kid how to kick the shit out of some legs. And he always manages to touch his opponent and close the show. So that nuke is available, and plus 110 is not enough. If I'm like, hey, maybe I would line up minus 125 Randy Brown, I'm not betting plus 110 Randy Brown when the other guy has nuclear missiles in his hands. That's not enough value for me to try to fade one of my favorite up and coming fighters, especially when they've got the death touch. So I would love for this line to flip so that I can bet Chaos Williams once he gets to plus money. It's chaos or pass. And I think you could argue both sides of this fight very confidently. I think Randy Brown probably takes this fight deeper just because of the way that he fights. And this is another spot where I think if you get an alternate over 1.5 total, it's not a bad look.
Yeah, the alternate over 1.5 on DraftKings is minus 190 at the moment.
Also, did you guys notice the over 1.5 for Oliveira Gaichi has magically disappeared?
Really?
Ooh.
That's crazy.
Ooh.
We talked about it and it's gone.
They don't want you touching that one now.
They're listening to us, yeah.
Well, and I'm looking around the market. It's a little unfortunate actually because that minus 160 they had hanging was a little bit lower than the other books I'm seeing. So, yeah, they might be readjusting that line a bit.
They pulled it. That's fucking crazy. Maybe it'll come back. That's wild.
I'm sure it'll come back, but it'll be like minus 190 or something.
Wow, that's really interesting. Yeah, I agree with you on that one too. Yeah, I like chaos here. I'm not a fan of Randy Brown.
I could see where the clinch and the 56% distance defense and 2 distance strikes absorbed per minute for Randy Brown, I could see him getting to a decision. So I can understand.
Dude, that's where there's some real money.
Yeah, so like
they got Chaos Williams by decision at plus 350 on DraftKings, which means it's probably going to be higher on FanDuel when they release it. So I like that. I totally like fading the narrative here in terms of a finish for Chaos. I even like what Clint said about the way Randy fights and maybe pushing it a little bit further. I honestly like one of our favorite plays. Maybe the problem is, and this is the truth, Randy Brown's chin is a fucking concern. It is truly a concern. He got knocked out cold by Nico Price and by Vicente Luque. Like, and yeah, those guys are violent guys, but so is Chaos. So I kind of liked Chaos Williams.
That's why I wouldn't go all the way to decision.
I know. I kind of like Chaos Williams in the over 1.5 at plus 165, but that dude knocks him out in the first 2 minutes. I have no one to blame but myself, so I don't know if I can do it.
I mean, yeah, you're getting Chaos at minus 120 at this point. I think it could even keep on sliding. You're going to see Randy Brown once again. Like we said, he's going to be taller. So face-offs, people might keep on, that trend of the line closing here. I wouldn't mind that. I'm going to sit back and wait on that one. See where I'm at.
Definitely not a confident pick for me, guys. Like I said, I'm just kind of riding the train here. I've bet on Chaos ever since he got to the UFC. I kind of pegged him early on as a guy that I liked and a guy I wanted to back, and people underestimated his power. He has found ways to win. It looked like he was maybe going to drop that Miguel Baeza fight, and he got the damn thing done. And, he went toe-to-toe with Pajea. And this would be the spot where I'm like, all right, I need to back off a little bit. But he keeps cashing the damn ticket. And now he's going to train with Gaichi. Like, if I called this dude up on the phone and was like, man, I'm a big fan. If you would just take your camp here, it would make worlds of difference. I'd have picked Trevor Whitman and Justin Gaethje for him. So, like, how can I possibly go against him when he's doing everything exactly the way that I want him to? And I've made money on him the last couple fights. Can't go against Chaos here.
For sure.
Yeah, now we get into like one of those real sketchy fights. Really sketchy fights.
Ridiculous.
Francisco Trinaldo versus Danny Roberts.
Boo.
Talk about
I love Trinaldo. Boo, Danny. Boo. Hot chocolate. Boo. I love hot chocolate, but not you, Danny Roberts. Boo. Sorry.
Why are we booing Danny Roberts?
Yeah, I don't know.
You know what?
Guru's got some like inherent bias on this fight. Apparently,
I don't like. You know what's weird? I don't like Danny Roberts. I don't like Randy Brown. And last week it was like Dwight Grant. Like there's these few guys, and I guess I maybe sound racist now, which I swear I'm not. Like these low output, these athletic, strong, like these scary guys, like they're gonna be so talented and they're low output and they do nothing and it's boring. That's why. They're all that way, all of them. And Danny Hot Chocolate, it's the same fucking way, man. He's sitting there and he's here, I'm coming, and it strikes you. You see him coming from a mile away. His whole body moves when he throws a jab. It's fucking insane. He's striking from a million miles out. He's losing versus Imadaev before he hits him with the like a movie, the punch out of a movie. That he overextends on the right hook and he doesn't see the one coming over the top, and he's like, "Oh my god, I'm asleep," and I've got hot chocolate in my face. It's terrible. But the problem with Trinaldo is he's 43. Like we were talking, the guys are old before. You could add up Joe Lozon and Donald Cerrone's age, and you're getting Trinaldo. He's so old. And the problem with Trinaldo is that other than really old, you don't get better as you get older. You're lucky if you stay the same. He's only gonna stay the same or get worse. They're the same fucking fighter. Trinaldo doesn't throw either. And they don't really grapple at all. I saw some grappling from Danny Roberts versus Ramazan Ameev, which he didn't win that fight. Ameev won round 1 and 2, Danny won round 3, and they give him a split decision. Great job, Hot Chocolate. Another reason why I don't like you. Like, it's just, it's not like he didn't. I've watched Danny Roberts time unbelievably incredible. He'll time the perfect takedown. He'll beat the guy to the position incredibly, and because he either doesn't drive through the takedown correctly or whatever, whether it's strength, whether it's skill acumen in terms of positioning, he gets beat out of positions time and time again when he is the one engaging in these exchanges and I got you, I have the higher ground, Anakin. Like you got him in the position you want him, and you're still not. Ameev is still flipping you over, and it's still not going your way. I just don't like this at all. If anybody has a strong read on this fight, I got a number for you to call. I think it's 1-800-GAMBLERS. I lean Trinaldo based on my major bias, but I really don't, because I think Danny Roberts, like it says up here, I think he's got a higher pace. And I think, which is insane because he's a fucking snail in terms of his output. He's got a higher pace, and I think that will probably be enough to edge him out some lame decision. But again, I would love, nobody more than me would love to see Trinaldo knock this fool to another 2 years off till we see him again.
Damn,
what do you guys think?
How do we follow that up?
Yeah, I'm just gonna throw all my papers on the ground. I guess that's good podcast tonight, guys. I think we did it. The Guru coming in. I don't know if that was hate speech or whatever it was.
Oh, Jesus.
No,
hate speech in 2022. Jeez.
Well, yeah, I'm just saying. I mean, this is as big a bias as I've seen recently. But ultimately, like, do I really disagree with the majority of your points? I mean, not really. But I mean,
tread lightly.
Francisco Trinaldo -115. Danny Roberts -105. At least Francisco Trinaldo, I've seen him have, like actual takedown success. It's just like, I mean, overall, this is just going to be a low.
Who was he wrestling? A caveman?
I mean, he's got 20 out of 45 throughout his career here. So that's, he's landing about 1 per 15.
1 per fight, like he's going for maybe 1.
Yeah, exactly.
24 UFC fights.
Yeah, so I'm just trying to think of the things that could really like stand out in this fight, because ultimately it's just going to be a low output sketch ball. So like, let's look at last week. This is the
Spider-Man meme fight. It's just like it's you. It's the same guy looking at each other.
Well, last week I had the call and we didn't end up playing it. Like silly me. And
yes,
to be won by split or majority decision +475. That's the play on this fight. Let's hit it.
Yes, it is 100%.
You guys, I don't mind that at all, and I'm so pissed because I called the Andrei Arlovsky split decision last week, and I talked about it, and it was +650. And then I was like, yeah, but Collier's probably going to win the fight, so I didn't bet it.
That's exactly what we did too. It was oh my god.
And then I was like, you know what? Like, even if I wasn't going to plant my flag and say Andre by split, which I should have, because the man doesn't lose split decisions. I should have just bet the fight goes to split at 4-1. That it was like, okay, like I don't care who wins, but someone's going to win by split because it's going to be close. Yeah, no, I don't mind that here whatsoever. The only problem for me is that we're seeing evidence over the last couple fights of Trinaldo's durability ticking away. His last couple fights, he's been rocked. His last couple fights, he's been wobbled. He's a 155er who's old and can't make that weight cut, so now he's up at 170. Like, Danny Roberts has a big size advantage here, guys. And believe it or not, he's got a decent youth advantage here. He's 34 years old. This guy is he's 9 years younger. Like, we talk about guys at 34 years old being towards the end of their prime and starting to become a little irrelevant. He is 9 years younger than Francisco Trinaldo. And we're not even sure that's his real age. He probably fudged his papers. 100%. So he's probably 56. I think Danny Hot Chocolate knocks him out. Wow. Plain and simple. I think we've seen kind of a career resurgence. Danny's working at a good gym. He's getting better, believe it or not. I know what you're saying. Like, the last couple fights, Zaleem and Ramazan, like, they've been sketchy at best. But Zaleem Imadaev and Ramazan Amir, they're young studs. They're not bad. It's 8-3, 20-5. Like, these are guys that are on the come up, and Danny's doing enough to get by them. I know Francisco Trinaldo's the ageless wonder, but eventually Father Time gets us all. And if Danny comes out and just kind of boxes him up, I think he can clip him and put him down. I'm not like writing, and I'm not pulling out the checkbook. You know what I mean? I'm not going to take out a mortgage or anything to put on Danny Roberts. And I have been this close to betting it 4 different times already this week. And every single time I put it in the bet slip and my finger hovers over the bet button and I put my phone down.
I would wait. I would wait. Maybe you can get Danny Roberts at some plus money.
No, the money's coming in on him. He was he was plus 100, then minus 105. Now it's evens. So, like,
oh shit, yeah.
That's my thing, is like, the line is moving the way that I agree it probably should, but at the end of the day, it is a pick'em fight. And at the end of the day, Francisco Trinaldo is a professional Brazilian weasel and finds ways to win. So, like, I'm not confident at all. Gut says Danny Roberts.
Brazilian
Gut
weasel?
says Roberts by knockout.
You get that from Colby?
I might not bet him. what was that?
I said a Brazilian weasel. Is that racist? Did you get that from Colby?
No. Shout out Dan Levy. Half the battle. When guys get away with the wins that they probably shouldn't, he always calls them weasels. So he's a Brazilian weasel. So
I'm just being.
Hey, you've got your biases and I've got mine. Okay.
I'm just trying to mediate a podcast.
These are all jokes. Anybody listening? Yes. These are poorly constructed jokes. We don't have any racist biases in fighting. We're kidding.
I don't have a racist bone in my body. I don't even see color.
Anyways,
Michael Scott. Anyway.
Yep.
Anyways,
nope, I love the
Office. As we get into our next fight here, this is one
on the planet.
Yeah. This is one that I can get into. We got Macy Chasson versus Norma Dumont.
Well, we know why you can get into it.
Yeah, no, I'm very interested in the Norma Dumont side as always. Minus 225. There might still be, a little something going on there.
I think you could still squeeze out a little bit of value on that Norma side. And I just don't think that, Macy's obviously tall, but I just don't know that she's necessarily like body shape wise like a real 145er. Like, I just, you know what I mean? Like, I just don't necessarily think that that's gonna really go her way. And Norma hits pretty damn hard, and I don't think Macy's got great takedown defense. So
yeah, it's not great, but especially you see Marion Renault out there like getting the takedown and stuff like that. And Macy, I do think she's improved her overall striking, a little bit more patient. You've seen her not really just crash forward into the clinch like she'd done in the past.
Wait, didn't that just happen in the Raquel Pennington fight? Didn't she get clinched up and
yeah, because she got absolutely fucking popped. So then she's like, oh shit, like I need to readjust my calculations. But we're talking about like just the overall
calculations.
Yeah, just like her overall tendencies these past couple, it hasn't been like fully clinch city. I mean, you see like overall her time at distance is 36% in her total career. It's been a lot more than that if you were to look at like specifically the Raquel Pennington and Marion Renault fights. Yeah, you go back, Lena Landsberg, also a clinch queen. So like that fight on its own is also going to have a big thing as far as Chasson's numbers. And And even, the Gina Mazzani and the Penny Chianza, Sarah Moras, a lot of those fights, they just end up in clinch positions and you see the knees. Same thing, Shanna Young. Like Macy Chiasson, she's violent when she gets in those clinch positions, but it ended up being against some of these opponents that like just couldn't physically match her. And Norma Dumont, if there's anything, she's physically strong. I think that short notice appearance that she had against Megan Anderson and that one loss in her career, you saw her actually winning in the clinch and controlling Megan Anderson for a solid period of time. So like 3 minutes before it's just like, like I'm done. Like that was it. And then next thing you know, like she just they separate and yeah, boom, there you go. She's knocked down, knocked out. And now it seems like they're really building up Norma Dumont to be the next title challenger at 145 after this whole Ultimate Fighter, Juliana Pena, Amanda Nunes deal. Because I don't see who else is really going to be the contender. It seems really wishy-washy with the type of fighters they're bringing up to 145, back to 135. Norma Dumont seems like the mainstay, and hey, she's on a roll here. Ultimately,
there's only 3 fighters in the division, so
yeah, that's what I'm saying. It's like, but yeah, that's the thing. I mean, like ultimately, yeah, it's the thickness. She's strong. She's able to do it well, but
like bull.
She also hasn't been tested from like a pace standpoint. Realistically, is that like she's been able to kind of just like sit back. So I wonder if Chiasson is going to like push the pace here and how much she does.
They kind of throw a similar pace though. If anything, distance strikes it landed per minute at distance is higher in terms of Dumont.
Well, I'm talking about pushing into those, like pushing forward and getting into like the grappling positions and stuff like that.
Okay.
I'm saying like, is Chiasson going to like, because it's been where Norma Dumont has been able to just like kind of sit at distance. You see that 65% spend at distance for her, even with all that lad control and all that other stuff in her fights. But yeah, I mean, ultimately,
41% control time for Macy's a lot of time for her to be spent in control position.
Yeah, well, like we said, it's kind of facing those less physical fighters where she racks up all those positions, because then she's losing those positions against Renault. Ultimately, Norma Dumont, I feel comfortable as like a parlay piece here.
I do too.
Clint, what are you thinking on this?
Oh yeah, we have an unbelievable special guest on the show. Make sure you guys are following him at diehardmma pod, checking out that Deadlock podcast, going over to Pub Sports Radio to check him out. So yeah, what's up, Clint? What do you think?
Thank you, guys. Thank you. No, I know you guys bring me in here as the expert voice and the super big brain, high level breakdowns, and you absolutely nailed anything except that Macy Chiasson's going to knock her the fuck out. I don't know why I think that. I have no statistical evidence to base that up. This is like a straight up gambler, hairs on the back of my neck situation. Macy Chiasson is somebody who folds up, takes her ball, and goes home. I can't bet on her. Like she's just that kind of fighter for me, especially in that Rocky spot. Like, oh, guys, I was licking my lips when they lined her up against Rocky. I knew my girl Pennington was going to absolutely wreck her. Didn't expect her to choke her the fuck out, but I knew she was going to get in there and do some damage. But all that being said, moving up a weight class, Macy does well in the bully role. She does well in the clinch. And if you've seen her Instagram, she is taking the shift in weight classes very seriously. She struggles on the scales getting down to 135. I think she's better suited at 145. And what we see from Norma Dumont is a slow, plodding, pin you up against the fence style fight. Mm-hmm. And I just don't know that works against Macy Chiasson. Like if you're gonna engage in the clinch, you're not gonna shoot a double leg. You're not gonna ankle pick her. You're going to look for the body lock and drag her to the mat. Macy Chiasson's got knees and elbows from that spot. Like you're playing right into her wheelhouse. And the one time that we saw Norma Dumont lose in the UFC, it was a first round KO to Megan Anderson. And now I know Megan Anderson was like a legit 145er. Like she was a big woman in there.
I love her.
But which, by the way, I don't know if you guys saw on Twitter. Somebody stood her up for a date the other day. Like we all
who would do that?
Absolutely,
I actually did see that, by the way. That's ridiculous.
No, but I mean, I know Megan Anderson was a big hitter at 145. She's a big woman, but like Macy Chiasson is not small, and when she's beating these lower caliber fighters, she is tending to knock them out. Now, I know it was Gina Mazzani and Shayna Moraes. I mean, 2 girls that really probably don't belong on the UFC roster. I'm just saying she's got power.
I don't think they are anymore.
No, they're not. They've been cut. So, again, this is where like I'm poking holes in my own theory here. Do not bet Macy Chiasson. Don't bet her by knockout. But for some reason,
But
I
by
think it's gonna
knockout
happen.
plus 600, but it's plus 600.
That's what I'm like. I can't parlay Norma Dumont. And again, this is just like a pit of my stomach. Like, I don't know why, but I think this is happening. So, I'm not touching this fight because I've got a weird feeling. I got the heebie-jeebies.
Talk about a weird fight. How about this next fight? Isn't that a weird one too?
Yeah, I mean Brandon Royval
From this point
versus
on, they're all weird.
Yeah, we're getting into sketchball territory because I mean, like, there's some of these where
you can't trust any of the stats for these fighters because they're just fucking crazy. Because they don't like you can't really internalize like how like you can't expand out their fight stats because they don't fight for 15 minutes generally. It's really strange.
Yeah, so Brandon Royval, he loves to end up in these control positions and end up in dangerous finishing positions. It's just a matter of does he persevere this time or not? It's 3-2 in his UFC career. He's in bad positions in every single one of those 5 fights. But Matt Schnell in his UFC career, one ended up being a no contest, but I mean, the dude has been just straight up flatline 3 separate occasions. And then his decision loss to Rogerio Bontorin, it's like, he does a lot better job of standing up to the power and combinations. But in the 3rd round, as he gets hurt, he's badly wobbled. Oh no, Rogerio Bontorin shoots the takedown and doesn't go for the finish on the feet. So Matt Schnell, there's a pretty clear path to victory if you're fighting him. It's piece him up from distance, but get him into that Cody Garbrandt style firefight because when he starts throwing crazy in the pocket, that chin is wide open and he's proven to, not really hold up so well. The thing is, Brendan Royval, for all of his striking, he's much more of like just a pure chaos guy. So Schnell, he likes to take it slow, boxing, distance, doesn't want to engage too crazy, but like once it starts getting there, man, all bets are off.
Crazy. Yeah, he loves to go crazy.
Yeah, so like that's what I'm saying is like I guess more so recently he's been trying to like pull back from those tendencies, save the chin, but like Royval, he's gonna bring out that firefight. I mean, he knocks down Kai Kara France 2 times. He's getting Brandon Moreno with a 1-2, causing a big reaction, a big stun, and then next thing you know, Moreno's like, all right, I don't want to play from distance anymore. I'm shooting a takedown. He's hurting guys. So even though you don't think, stylistically, he's throwing these big overhands or he's got these hooks, he's got those step in knees, the spinning back elbows. He loves throwing leg kicks. He's got a solid 1-2. He's got some power there. So, I mean, overall, yeah, Brandon Royval, I mean, I do think that he can create enough chaos here to where he's going to find himself a nice little victory. The question is, is he a good enough grappler to submit Matt Schnell? Because that's where I think, Royval's real path to victory lies. He can hurt you, he can do some stuff, but I don't think he's that advanced on the feet to have that big of advantage against Schnell. The question is when it gets into the grappling, it's the same kind of question. So like, no, I just think that this fight ends up being Scramble City, chaos. And although, we want to say stuff about Schnell's chin and everything like that, like this might be one of those other ones where, yeah, it gets like real sketchy here, but that fight goes a distance. I mean, plus 140. That's something that, like, I think just to take, I know, Guru's been digging into grandma's couch cushions. We're going to have to go over to, grandpa's armchair, scoop a little bit out of there because, things are getting a little skimpy around here as we get through this 15 fight card. But yeah, I think if anything, we've seen this fight. We've seen these guys end inside the distance a lot. It might be time to fade that narrative a little bit just because I think like stylistically, these guys might actually kind of negate what the other likes to do a lot. Guru, I think you actually might be a little bit opposite from me here. What are you thinking, man?
Yeah, I don't know. It's an interesting thought to try to fade the narrative in this spot. Plus 140, the fight goes the distance, right? Everybody thinks that the fight won't go the distance. I thought the line was wider. Why did I think Royval was creeping up to minus 300 and even more north? He's now minus 250, minus 265 on FanDuel. I mean, that's not the crazy favorite that he was before, right? Is minus 250 really too steep to play on Royval? Do we minus 250 is a 71% win probability? Yeah, that probably is a little too steep on Royval, who can put himself in like you said, too oftentimes into bad positions with the submissions. And no, I don't think that he can submit Matt Schnell per se. Matt Schnell's only been submitted the one time on Ultimate Fighter by Tim Elliott. Pantoja knocks him out in round 1. He survives through Tyson Nam. Getting knocked out by Rob Font is a terrible look, but that was his first fight post Ultimate Fighter. But yeah, and again, are we not going to talk about at all the weigh-in concerns for Matt Schnell, who didn't have a problem weighing in last time? It was Alex Perez that had the weigh-in problem. Then before that, it was Schnell that had the weigh-in problem against Alex Perez. They kept trying to set that fight up over and over and over again. 4 times they've tried to book that fight. 3 after his loss to Bontarine, and it falls through, and now he's going to fight Royval. Super sketchy fight. It's interesting because coming into it, before I heard TB's breakdown, I kind of like the fight not to go the distance. I almost wanted to lay the chalk at minus 170. Now I'm not even really sure. I maybe just a sub. What's the fight just to end by submission? Like, I know sometimes FanDuel doesn't have any props out. Just the fight maybe to end by submission would be an interesting thought. So I don't know if I see that on here on I'm rambling. I don't know if I see that here on DraftKings. Clint, feel free to cut me off, bud. I know it's my show, but like, cut me off.
Thank you. No, this is a tough fight, really. I talked about it on my own show that I feel like, honestly, I should be betting Matt Schnell. I'm a Brandon Royval truther. He's my sleeper for the division. I think he's a top 5 guy. Matt Schnell is a guy that I try to fade at every opportunity possible. I don't really like his style. I don't like
Plus 110.
He
Submission.
has some durability concerns. No, you're good. The problem for me though is that Matt Schnell, if he makes it a technical fight, is going to box Brandon Royval up 15 minutes. You know, it's that simple. However, Brandon Royval is, shout out to the Club and Sub podcast. He is an agent of chaos, and he will force the fight. Now, his last fight or two, he's shown like he's kind of reined it in a little bit, taking a little step back from being the wild man that we first met in the UFC and I fell in love with. But if you listen to his interviews, he talked about how amped up he is to finally fight in front of a crowd. He's been one of these guys that's been COVID only and hasn't really gotten to experience the full UFC glory yet. And honestly, if you just force Matt Schnell into a dirty war, he is not nearly as effective. You go back and watch that Pantoja fight. Like, he hit Pantoja with a couple of big shots. Don't get me wrong. He's got some power in his hands and he can go to war, but he flounders.
He overexerted
and when he
himself
got
and
into that, I'm sorry, what was that?
I said he overexerted himself and he overthrew himself in that Pantoja fight after hurting him a couple times, and he got slept so bad he fell right on his face.
Oh, he got deaded. I mean, it was like
bad.
his body wasn't aware that it was shut off yet before he hit the ground. Like, he did not. It probably took him 2 days to wake up from that nap. Like, it was bad.
Yeah.
So
bad. I like this fight.
This is a spot where the type of chaos that Royval causes is the type of stuff that Matt Schnell is not capable of handling. As much as I think the line is wrong, I do think that Brandon Royval wins. I'm predicting around 2 submission myself. I don't know that he's got the pure KO power enough to knock out Matt Schnell. I think we see a club and sub and they get into some crazy scramble on the mat and he catches an arm or something like that. Because between you guys and me, Royval submitted his opponent Bontarine in the 3rd round of his last fight. So
yes,
I should have cashed that round 3 ticket, which I'm very angry they didn't catch the old, again, I'm going to go back to Dan from Best Fight Picks, the Brazilian tap, where they get away with tapping and then somehow the fight continues. He tapped, son of a bitch.
That is a legitimate term for sure. We even saw that in PFL in the Verdum fight. Was it where he had that triangle locked in? The dude kind of gave like the Brazilian tap there. It's one of those tactics you try to get them to loosen up, and it definitely worked. Royval had that submission locked in. That's something we've seen before.
How about the MMA math that Tim Elliott submitted Matt Schnell, but Brandon Royval submitted Tim Elliott?
Therefore, Matt Schnell should submit Brendan
Yeah,
Royval.
to complete the rock paper scissors. Yes, absolutely.
Absolutely. No, rock paper scissors is a thing in mixed martial arts.
is.
Styles are everything. The problem is, I absolutely think that Brendan Royval is the better grappler of the two, and that's something Matt Schnell I've been very complimentary of. That the one thing he does do really well is honestly he's very good in scrambles, but I think Royval scrambles circles around him. If I'm being honest, so if we hit the floor, I favor Royval further.
Yeah, especially as that fight maybe goes on and that Schnell weight cut maybe doesn't go too well because Royval has never really shown a problem on the scale.
Gotta see him on the scales.
Yeah. Always got to see these boys on the scales, especially at the lower weight class.
Yeah, so now we're going to start getting this momentum rolling here. We got some big boys, heavyweight division. Marcos Rogerio Pazao de Lima versus Blagoy. I got stabbed in the chest a lot of times.
A lot of times.
He stabbed
a lot.
Yeah.
Blagoy stabbed a lot is his name.
Yeah. DC and his, such beautiful words and terminology. But yeah, so interestingly enough here, I mean, you see Ivanov at -155 and De Lima at +135. And like, just kind of like paper scouting, you're like, well, Blagoy's got 5 submissions in his career, the combat sambo background. He's got, 6 takedowns. Oh, no, I'm sorry. Yeah, he's only got, he's got the 6 takedowns in the UFC. But then it's like the control and the overall submission attempts. Like you see him kind of go for stuff sometimes, but it's like realistically overall, Blagoy Ivanov just kind of matches whatever output his opponent brings, or at least to his best ability, as you see in like the Dos Santos fight. I mean, he just gets completely outpaced, but every other fight, like Blagoy Ivanov is just like kind of right there. But it seems like he's generally fighting with people that have a gas tank just as bad as his, but he continually goes to decision because his chin is just absolutely unreal. I mean, Augusto Sakai, you saw him like fade a little bit, use a little cage fence grab to save himself in the 3rd round there. I mean, sitting on a Blagoy Ivanov ticket, that one hurt a lot. That Herzog is just kind of like, hey, like, stop it. Like, he didn't take the point on like, I mean, DC was freaking out on commentary. But yeah, I mean, Blagoy Ivanov, can you trust him to put together the takedowns and the grappling that you kind of feel he's going to need to separate himself on like a pace basis from Rogerio de Lima? I don't think so. And you watch Rogerio de Lima, I actually went back and watched his heavyweight debut. I watched his other, Maurice Green, like that fight wasn't as impressive just given that Green was so accepting of the positions. But like Rogerio de Lima, even in the fights where he's getting tossed around by Romanov at times, like he still is doing all of the right things. It's just like against those true heavyweights, I mean, the dude's only 6'1", he's not the biggest. He fought at light heavyweight for an extended run before moving up. But Rogerio de Lima, I mean, Blagoy Ivanov is going to be giving up the size to Rogerio de Lima. Blagoy Ivanov is heavy on the front foot. I mean, getting completely eaten up by Augusto Sakai and taking the power off of his punches. Rogerio de Lima, I mean, the offensive wrestling, I mean, you kind of see him pushing a better pace than Blagoy Ivanov's been pushing in the UFC. Overall, I mean, I see multiple pathways to victory for Rogerio de Lima, even if he doesn't get the knockout. So at +135, I'm taking a shot on the dog here. And this is actually one of my more confident kind of ideas. I just don't think Ivanov is going to do anything to like really separate himself as far as pace goes. I don't think he's really got like the finishing ability in the UFC. And he hasn't shown it so far. And like De Lima, I think he's going to do more from a control perspective if this fight goes a distance too. So, all right, boys, pile it on. I know I've got a little issue here. So, let me know.
Not my favorite handicap of yours. I mean, listen, I get it. A dog price on a heavyweight fight, and you haven't seen Ivanov in a while. I just think at the end of the day, like, De Lima is just, he's got, you see all that green and you think he's a stud, but in reality, like we were kind of talking about before, his stats don't really make much sense because they're never extrapolated over 15 minutes. Like, yeah, his pace is crazy because he fights for fucking 4 minutes at a time. Like he doesn't last. So unless Lima gets the finish in round 1, I don't know if anything that you said holds any weight anymore. Truly. Like I don't know if he can do much. Yeah, like you even said, like, oh, the Maurice Green fight wasn't as impressive, because Green was so accepting of those positions. Yeah, he literally like, and round 2 start, and he like, you know what? Let me just lay down for you. That'll make it easier. Like he goes right to his back, and again, he doesn't even get the finish on Maurice Green, mind you. He just sits on top of him for like 13 minutes. Ivanov is not gonna do that combat sambo background. Like, if it was that easy to just take him down and dump him, I think people would have done that already. Like, if it was that easy to knock him out and hurt him, I think people would have done that already. Like, the dude is tough as nails. And De Lima is, we've said it a few times tonight, but he's a super take your ball and go home kind of guy. So I don't want my money really kind of anywhere near this fight. I like Blagoy by decision. I like the fight to go the distance at the end of the day, because I just don't think Blagoy really does anything to finish anybody. I think they just kind of stand around and slop all over each other, and Blagoy holds him in the clinch because even though De Lima is bigger, Blagoy will be stronger, and like in the more positioning, he's just going to hold that fat body up with the titties all over his shoulders. It's going to be awesome. So, Clint, what do you think?
I got to echo some of your sentiments there, man. That I
specifically
just,
the titties on the shoulder.
Specifically the titties on the shoulder. Can't trust De Lima, and this is coming from a guy that I had a massive 3-unit bet on him against my dad, Big Ben Rothwell, his last time out. Like I just knew he was going to smoke him early in that fight. He could smoke Blagoy. He could, but Blagoy's whole thing is being durable. Like that's his ticket, is that you can't put this guy away. So if the fight gets extended, well, that's the one thing that De Lima can't do. So like, it's just one of those fights where I'm like, okay, so if De Lima starches him early, am I going to be surprised? No, Blagoy's old. He's been around forever. Sure, it makes sense. If Blagoy even off boxes his face off for 15 minutes and gets it done, am I surprised? No, I'm not surprised. If Blagoy takes him down, it only happens one time per 15-minute fight. But if and when he does do that, I don't expect Marcos Rogerio de Lima to get up. I think it's Blagoy by sub, just because de Lima's awful on the ground. Absolutely god awful. So if somebody were to slap Blagoy and tell him to shoot more than one takedown in this fight, he would be a minus 600. So I can't touch it. I do think it's gonna be.
Hey, listen, man. At 35 years old, Blagoy's basically a rookie on this card because we got some old men on this card.
It's true. That's a fight I have no interest in putting a whole lot of money on, and God forbid, if you do feel confident on there, you go for it, and I'll wish you luck. I'm not lining up to bet that fight.
And not for nothing, Blagoy, I feel like again when he's fighting somebody like Derek Lewis, like he's so used to being the smaller guy, and yeah, Rogerio de Lima is going to have a 2-inch height and 2.
It's like having a size advantage for him.
but yeah, but like, you know what I'm saying? But like, De Lima is somebody that really utilizes that reach advantage. He's going to keep him at the end of his jab and make him what? No, it's not his style. He's not going to use any of these physical tools. It's not his way.
Yep.
So yeah, I don't. Yeah, De Lima. What's to your point, TB? What's a play on De Lima round 1? Like if it happens, that's how it's going to happen.
I actually see that's the thing is like I don't even think that it's limited to just that. I just think specifically.
I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I understand. I understand. It's just the specific angle that I'm taking here is that I mean,
you haven't seen him win. You've only seen him beat Maurice Green.
If I could, though, TB's not entirely wrong.
He's entirely wrong.
Marcos Rogerio does actually have some solid Muay Thai. That if this is going to be literally just a kickboxing fight, if he never gets threatened from Blagoy with takedowns, and we spend 15 minutes in the center of the cage in the pocket, like he's got solid Muay Thai. The leg kicks are good. He reads well. He checks well. He's faster. So he could win a striking match. Don't get me wrong, but the second Blagoy gets smart and decides to change levels, it's over.
I think he's just going to hold him in the clinch. I don't even think he's going to need to take him down. I just think that he's just going to wear on him and make him really tired.
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah, we'll see. I don't know. I've got like a funny tickle for this fight. I don't know why I'm so confident in my read here, but I don't know, boys. We'll see on fight night, and I'm willing to have some egg on my face, and you can start throwing tomatoes if things get ugly. So
I'm gonna throw more than tomatoes at you. I'll be.
Always trust the funny tickle.
Yeah, it's kind of what you said. It's the hairs up on the back of your neck. You know,
For sure.
if it
For real.
seems sketch to you, I get it. And listen, laying chalk on Blagoy is not something I'm rushing to go do. So hey,
yeah.
you make money betting dogs. So moving on. How about a fight that we're definitely not looking at the dog on?
Yeah, I mean Andre Fialho versus Cameron Van Camp. I just think I'll keep it short and sweet on this one. Cameron Van Camp is being signed up for something he shouldn't be signing up for.
Ooh.
Andre Fialho, he wanted another fight in short order. He got another fight in short order. It's minus 400 Fialho. I'll stay
Just
off
too cheap.
that because it's a little crazy. But I mean, like, he should roll here.
Yeah, Van Camp has only lost once by KO, which I would assume is Fialho's best path to victory. Round 1, round 2, basically really round 1 because that's Fialho's thing. That's why we lost money on him versus Baeza. We're like, hey, if Baeza can continue to move, use his leg kicks, maybe mix in the wrestling, and survive that round 1, he should be fine. Well, guess what? Motherfucker did not survive round 1, so he got sent to Mars, and that'll be the last we see of him for a little while. So now we got Andre Fialho. Very exciting. Like you just so well said, he wanted another fight. We give him one. Van Camp, right? Honestly, to me, deserves to be in the UFC. Maybe would have been a Dana White Contender Series path kind of guy. He's your B2 welterweight champion, won the title, defended the title. Long limbs, good lead jab. He likes to grapple, like willing to certainly mix up the grappling. He's got a very like bullying style, really likes to put the pressure on, wants to hold you in the clinch. You like to see that he's very composed on the ground. He prefers which you like to see. You like to see him go for the position over submission, which he still gets a ton of submissions, mind you. He's got 9 submission wins of his 15. So sure, could Fialho gas out after a couple rounds and maybe he sneaks in a sub or something? It's certainly possible. I just think the way Van Camp fights with his hands down low, that Fialho should be able to spark him early and get it done. But hey, why not? What do you think, Clint? Anything?
I'll keep it short and sweet. I agree. Fialho should be able to get him out of there and get it out of there early. I'm not entirely convinced that this guy is UFC caliber. That said, he hasn't really fought anybody of, substance for the last couple of years. Hell, he hasn't fought in the last year or so, period. So we could see improvements. You never know. The way Fialho fights, he will engage in a firefight. So don't be shocked if he ends up on the wrong end of one. But I fully expect him to win first round KO.
Moving right along.
Nice and easy. And this one, now we get into one of those interesting spots for me on this card. Tracy Cortez versus Melissa Gatto. You got minus 150 Cortez, plus 130 Gatto. And overall, I mean, you got a pretty good sample size given that they've gone pretty deep in both of their fights here. And I mean, Cortez, just really not a finisher, really not someone that puts damage on their opponents or even really puts them in like fight ending positions when it comes to being on the mat. And also Cortez noticed, a little trouble last time out with the weight cut. Always seemed like, cardio's been a little bit of an issue as far as like aggressively pursuing finishes or dominant positions. And Melissa Gatto, she's going to be much more comfortable from distance in this fight than Tracy Cortez is. Unless there's been some really big adjustments in Tracy Cortez's overall game. I mean, Melissa Gatto at least has developed her 1-2 and front kick combinations to the point where she's comfortable throwing 10 strikes per minute at distance, at landing. I'm sorry. So once again, not the biggest of sample sizes, but I mean, just when you visually watch Tracy Cortez fight, she's not someone that's really overall pushing the pace on the feet. In fact,
She's not comfortable on the feet.
It's like the Carla Esparza, like, kind of just avoid, your opponent on the feet until you get to where you feel comfortable shooting again for a takedown. So then when it gets to that part, I know that, all week Guru's been telling me Melissa Gatto's got terrible takedown defense, blah, blah. I don't think that's necessarily 100% the case. I think Sijara Eubanks coming down from 135 to the 125, having a distinct strength advantage and
being so advanced with her jiu-jitsu. Like, you got to give a little bit of credit to Gato for successfully stuffing all but one takedown in that fight
She's
as well.
taken down by hosts on the regional scene as well.
Yeah, but I think you've seen a lot of advances now. She's 26 years old and had a lot of time off to make those advances. So whether it be one in the striking or two, you see her digging for the underhooks and really fighting along the cage and using it to stay up for the most part. But when the fight does get to the mat, it's submission attempt city. I know that we don't have any officially on record there, but it's Kimura's to reverse position or even, put in danger of a submission. It's triangle attempts, it's armbar attempts. Melissa Gato, she's got a bit of a reach advantage here, so she's going to have a little bit of an easier time kind of getting into these interesting, like twisted around positions when she gets taken down. I do think Cortez is going to find a little success getting her down at some point early. I just don't think she's going to like what happens when it gets there. I don't think she's going to like what happens when she's standing a distance. I do think Gato has shown to have a bit of cardio at this point in the UFC level. So I like Melissa Gato at plus 130, and I'll be interested in seeing what, the inside the distance right now under 2.5 is a plus 170. That was
the play I was going to say.
But in that point, like, Cortez only by decision in her career. So it's almost like I'd rather see what the Gato inside the distance line.
That's true. Yeah, we have no props available, not even on DraftKings for this fight. Very similar, Tracy Cortez and Carla Esparza in that respect, in that they're not really hurting you on the feet, and they need to take you to the ground to get it done. And Melissa Gato, as you said, is a beast, at least very much so, is a beast off her back, and that's a problem. I do worry though. Like, Tracy's been obviously dating Brian Ortega for a while. I'd really hope some of that jiu-jitsu would rub off on her. So, like, maybe she doesn't get submitted like via armbar or something silly off her back in a fight that she's winning for the majority of the time. Yeah, I lean Gato. I'll probably put a little something on it. Not a fight I'm super confident in. I like Tracy to start the week, but yeah, as I kind of looked at Gato being not undefeated, but undefeated for a reason. And, I also looked back at the Tracy Cortez's tape and wasn't super impressed with anything, right? As we were saying, like, she gets a split decision win over Justine Kish. Like, that's a fucking problem. And it's kind of what I was alluding to before. It's like, when you're not doing damage, even if judges are wrong, you're not gonna win some of them over because you're not fucking doing anything on the feet. Like, that's the criteria. It's striking and grappling to, like, end a fight. It's fight ending. You're supposed to put your opponents in fight ending positions, and if you're not doing that, you're not scoring. That's a problem. And it's very possible that she sits on top and is not putting Gato in fight ending positions. So not where I want to lay my money. What do you think, Clint?
I got Gato plus 155. That was the first bet of the week. It jumped off the page at me. It screamed, "This is wrong." Gato's been my girl lately. I bet her with the big upset against the Jar Eubanks. I think her submission game is deadly. And like you mentioned, my only concern is that Miss Cortez is Mrs. Ortega at this point.
Yeah.
And there's a chance that she could be rapidly improving. Plus, she is at Fight Ready, which, again, my favorite gym in the world, scares the hell out of me. But one thing that I did hear from her is you listen to some of her interviews. And one of them, she actually talked about how she is a little frustrated and upset about the high level talent that has come into Fight Ready because they're taking her coaches. And that, to me, rings up a little red flag that it's like, oh, so the special preferred treatment that you were getting is lessened, or it's, not happening as much. And that, not to say that she wouldn't still be improving, not to say that Brian Ortega can't show her a trick or two.
Yeah, no.
But it is something to say that, like, hey, if the head coaches are paying more attention to John Jones than they are Tracy Cortez, she may not be quite as prepared or maybe improving at the rate that you would think she would be. I just think Gato's got her covered basically everywhere except the pure wrestling. If Tracy Cortez is able to wrestle her to the floor and then backpack her and control her for 15 minutes, I'll take my hat off. Congratulations, you win. If this fight takes place in any other realm, if there's any time spent standing, if she slows down like we've seen her do in the past and tires out in round 2, Gatto's going to eat her alive. So I do only have one unit at plus 155. It's a 1 unit shot because I thought, you know what? I'm going to go 1 unit. I don't really want to get in front of fight ready Tracy Cortez. I'll add more later. Now she's down to plus 120. So like I can't really comfortably add additional after beating the line by that much. So it's just going to be the 1 unit shot for me, but I do like Gatto, and I think there's some finishing upside. I think she could hoof her right to the gut the way that she did Sijara Eubanks in that 3rd round and TKO her or tap her out, because we're going to be on the mat. And Cortez may be training with Brian Ortega, but she is not Brian Ortega. So there's a chance that she could get caught in something.
Yeah, plus 155 is a fantastic line. Best we have now is plus 130 on DraftKings. So
always feels good to beat the move.
It is. That does feel good to beat the move. So kudos to you. And yeah, I'm glad that we're all on the same side on that. We don't even need to bust out the tinfoil.
Yeah, I mean, actually, look at this. We got Caesars stepping up here. Let's see.
What's on Caesars? What do they got?
They had Method. Gatto by KO or sub is plus 350.
Wow. That's dirty.
Yeah.
I mean, if she wins, don't get me wrong, she can win a decision, but like you'd think if it goes 15, it's probably because Cortez is controlling the grappling. Right. I think Gatto probably finishes more often than not if she wins it. So,
okay. All right, cool. Well, at least it's nice to see some kind of number was out there. Our next fight here, we got Kleidson Rodriguez versus CJ Vergara. Rodriguez at minus 335 and Vergara at plus 260. Alarm bells are going off in my head. We had Ode Osborne as like a pretty confident play going into UFC 268. And he did end up getting a unanimous decision. But CJ Vergara, when you look just statistically on paper and you look at the 3rd round, winning on a few judges' scorecards there and really, showing that when he gets on the front foot, goes first. CJ Vergara's got a pretty decent overall game plan for, the UFC here. I mean, he took the fight a little bit short notice against Ode Osborne. Now, Kleidson Rodriguez doesn't have quite the same athletic, like advantages when you look at even just the height and reach. I mean, these guys match up pretty well. So I'd like to see the weigh-ins. I'd like to see the face-offs for these guys to kind of confirm some of those ideas. And Rodriguez, I also think, is very much a more of a one-dimensional striker, and he'll go for the submission if he hurts you, and he'll jump on the back and get the sub. But it's not like where Ode Osborne shoots like nearly 10 takedowns on Vergara, and he has to actively be worried about, I need to defend the single leg here against, bigger, more athletic opponent. Like, no, like this is pretty straight up. And I think CJ Vergara is going to find an easier time getting on the front foot. I do favor Rodriguez just to win the fight straight up. If you're asking me, like a guy making his Dana White Contender Series debut here against someone that at least already got a taste of the big show, like Vergara plus 260, it's appealing, one of those little, little sprinkle, little something perhaps.
Yeah, I after watching the tape, I liked CJ Vergara a lot. He's somebody that won on the Dana White Contender Series as an underdog, cashes his ticket, and they put him, as you said, up against Ode Osborne, who's so fucking big for the division, and Ode wins 2 rounds. You could easily, you could fold it in, whatever, come back for the next fight. Dude wins round 3. He wins round 3. So cardio, against a bigger guy, whatever. Scrap, CJ Vergara, super scrappy, loves to come forward and be aggressive. He's got improved and solid, takedown defense. He's good at getting in and out of range. He's kind of bouncing on his feet. He's got the nice jabs and the head kicks, and again, decent cardio, as you can see. Winning round 3 versus Ode after losing the first 2 is no easy feat. Problem with CJ, though, is, he keeps his hands too low. He can struggle with longer limb fighters, as you saw with Ode Osborne. And also, as you see in the first couple rounds with Ode, he's watching him. He's like kind of mesmerized and kind of caught looking. And that could be a problem against somebody like Kleidson Rodriguez, who has a very, very entertaining fight style, spinning elbows, really good with the feints, very high output, tons of calf kicks and kicks to the body, very violent combinations, and he likes to mix it up very evenly in terms of head, body, and leg kicks. One of the things that I didn't like is that he gave up a body lock takedown on the Dana White Contender Series, and he gets right up right away, but he explodes up with with athleticism and strength over technique. So that could be a problem in general. I'm not sure that this is the fight where it's a problem. Again, I really like CJ. I like his style, the cornrows. That's small, scrappy Spanish kid. I do. I really like his style. I just think Klidson might be a little bit too much for him. But at this line, like you said, in less words, it's a little too wide. So I'll probably be circling Klidson. If there's anything somehow left in Grandpa's armchair, maybe I could throw it on CJ, but nothing. I hate that. Nothing I really love here. It's been a tough card in terms of so much analysis and just not loving the props.
As we get to these last few fights here, I mean, we might have to start looking in their little candy dish and see if any change fell in there to sprinkle these last few bets, man.
Might just have to straight up steal her purse or something. I'm not sure. Clint, what do you think, bud? You got something for us?
Yeah, I mean, this is my Dana White Contender Series fate spot, guys. Like, I love when somebody does well on the Contender Series and they step into the UFC and they are overhyped. CJ Vergara is a perfect example of that. He ran through his dude on the Contender Series, turns around, is a massive favorite in his UFC debut, and then drops it to a UFC vet. He learned that vet lesson. As you said, he was down 2 rounds, came out in the 3rd round like a bat out of hell.
Underdog to O'Day.
Was that?
He was did you say he was a favorite to O'Day?
I'm sorry if I missaid that. Then
yeah, he was a sizable underdog.
Okay, sorry about that, but I just mean whenever you get that initial debut, like they're overhyped coming into the UFC. It was a tough debut. I like O'Day Osborne. I know there's a lot of people out there that don't rate him personally, but like you mentioned, he's big for the division and he controlled those first 2 rounds pretty well. And in that 3rd round, he dug deep. CJ showed what kind of class he has. He showed he's got cardio. He showed he's got durability. He showed he's got the willingness to go out on his shield if he's losing in a fight. Like, that's exactly what you want from a dog. Those check all the boxes of what you would be looking for a dog that will fight for your money. So he's tasted that slightly upper tier now. He's been in the UFC. He's felt that he's comfortable. And now his opponent finds himself in a similar spot. Had a good UFC or Dana White Contender Series spot, comes into the UFC, is a massive favorite over CJ. And I think that CJ can have a lot of success in the pocket in this fight. I think if CJ crowds him and gets into range, I think he'll be able to blitz him from inside and hurt him. I think the leg kicks are going to be there. I think that CJ probably has more volume and cardio from what we've seen, at least of Rodriguez. Now, I know Rodriguez is probably got the higher ceiling here, but I do think that CJ definitely has a puncher's chance. And I think that this line is something that could be a little bit tighter, considering we really don't know a ton about Rodriguez at this point. We think, but we don't know. So dogger pass spot from me, might end up throwing a unit on CJ because I do like what I see from this kid. He's got the work ethic, and he just showed massive heart in his last fight that, like I said, even if he's up against the wall here versus Rodriguez, I know he's just going to continue to go for it to go ahead and win for me. So I can put my money comfortably on CJ knowing he's going to fight for it.
Yeah, you're 100%. I love the way you said that. It's so true. He does really check all the boxes that you're looking for with a dog. And not for nothing, CJ Vergara, 9 wins. Klidson Rodriguez stepping in for his 9th professional fight. So, very underexperienced for a heavy favorite here.
Yep.
Yeah, so we're getting down to it here, boys. We got our last couple matchups on the card. We got still some fun ones though. We got Ariane.
Yeah, we do.
Ariane, how many times are you gonna test me, USADA Carnelossi versus Lupi Godinez? This one, I mean, I think we've seen, kind of the path to what is like a comfortable victory for Carnelossi opponents. It seemed to be like let's get into the clinch or get into like the takedown positions where that like distance striking and power and a little bit of like aggression can't really harm you as much. Like Angela Hill ton of success in the clinch against Carnelossi, and it was a doctor stoppage. You know, those elbows opened up like a nice big cut. You know, I think Carnelossi is overall super tough and has good cardio though. So then you see her have these appearances, one against Na Liang, and yeah, I mean, she survives those bad positions in the first round, nearly submitted multiple times, but like you see that black belt come to life, and you know she's able to kind of just relax and survive those bad positions. Then Estela Nunez, you know, she's not exactly having a great time from distance, but she's able to persevere. She's able to get in, and she's able to start landing her own offensive takedown game, and ultimately just completely wears out Nunez. As we see, that's kind of like the game plan to beating Nunez. But you like to see Carnelossi as a young fighter. I mean, 29, and you know, I mean, she is 14-2, so overall, she's got a decent amount of experience here, and like it shows up in the fight game. She does have, you know, the IQ to like execute the game plan that needs to be done. The question here is, I mean, you're seeing Lupi Godinez is how high level is her wrestling? Because if it really is like that good, she probably rolls here. But when you see kind of like the Carolina fight, do you blame that all on size? Or is that like a serious question of like, oh, if someone's a little bit stronger, that they could do a good job stuffing takedowns? Like, you know what, Lupi fighting up a weight class, I don't think you want to take too much away from that.
No, dude, up a weight class. If you forget, that was not only was it a week's notice, it was a week after the fight that she won
Right.
against Juarez.
But on the same token, like Gomez Juarez and Luke Bunmi, how much are you really giving credit overall for executing a wrestling game plan against those opponents?
But okay, so
now Ariane
okay, but
Carnelossi, like
right, has a
that's the path,
25%,
right?
right? Yeah, she has a 25% takedown defense, which I'm not even going to look at that number because when you see it, how many she's faced, okay, she's only faced 4 takedowns and given up 2 or whatever. But at the end of the day, the problem is who the fuck has she fought that's wrestling her? Estela Nunez, Nia Lang, Angela Hill. That's it. Like, these are not wrestlers at all. So if you're giving up takedowns,
Well, the middle fight it was all wrestling in the first round, submission
right,
attempts, and then gassed
with
out.
Liang, but she's not even remotely, she's not even UFC level. Like, I don't even know where she is or what she's up to. Like, that's crazy. That fight was and again, you also have to remember that was the first fight back from with a crowd in Jacksonville. So that was the first fight that night. That was the fucking barn burner craziness fight. So I don't really put too much statistically wise into that. What I do put some credence into is 4.6 takedowns per 15 minutes with a 47% opponent control rate, like a controlling of your opponent rate. That's elite shit from Lupi. I like Lupi in over 1.5 because Carlosi's tough as nails. Obviously, I guess the problem would be Lupi getting tired and maybe Carlosi being able to tack it on later. I do. I think that Lupi's going to keep going, and eventually just going to keep getting Carnelossi to the ground. But Carnelossi is one of my, favorite random prospects for sure. Clint?
I think this fight probably takes place more in the striking realm, more so in the grappling, because I think they're going to cancel each other out. I think these two are going to, I mean, I know they're primarily wrestlers, the two of them, but I think that Lupi actually has a significant hand speed advantage and she's more technical. I think Carnelossi is going to wing big power bombs and go for it. Maybe as the fight drags on and Carnelossi starts to slow down a little bit, then Lupita can start to take over and get some ground control and stuff like that. I think Lupi by decision at even money probably makes some sense.
Yeah. So like I said, if I can get some plus money on Lupi and over 1.5 or so, I don't know what the parlays. I guess if you're saying if Lupi by decision is even money, I don't know.
Yeah, straight even money if you want her by decision. Because I don't. Let's be honest though, do we see Lupi finishing? Like I don't. Lupi Godinez is not much of a finisher, and if you're going to finish anybody, is it going to be freaking Carnelossi? Like I don't think Carnelossi's getting out of there.
That's a good point.
Yeah, ultimately, I just if I lean anything on the straight money line is Carnelossi, I probably just don't bet this fight though.
Wow. Yeah, no, I think I'm on Lupi, but that's fair. Carnelossi is a fucking savage, scary too. So, yeah, I just think Loopy's gonna put her in a place where she doesn't want to be.
And here we go. This fight, the next one, it opens up the card, and it's going to close out our show here. And we actually got a little action going on. It's a little counterintuitive to what our normal trends might be, but I think it kind of shows out on tape here. You got Journey Newson, Fernie Garcia. Journey Newson is a little bit undersized for the bantamweight division, and he's kind of always making up for it on the back end. Happy to see him get his black belt here in his time off, coming back from some knee injuries and stuff like that, coming back from getting knocked the fuck out by Randy Costa. Ultimately, seeing his chin hold up to the spinning back elbows of Ricardo Ramos, it's like I think it's more the question of Journey Newson not really like expecting to duck into the kick as he slipped off. Costa does a really good job of putting those together. So I don't think it's like that Newson has like, oh, if he just gets touched, like he's going out. But I mean, overall, I just don't think he's that overall well-rounded or good, and I don't think he's training out of the best camp. And he gets this extremely short notice call up to fight Ricardo Ramos in his first fight. His one win is a no contest. It gets overturned due to the chronic. So Fernie Garcia here, is he going to send Journey packing for his next journey in his MMA career? Ooh. That's the question. Fernie Garcia, the one thing that kind of stood out is he's very well rounded. He's not afraid to kind of like go to wherever he needs to feel most comfortable to win a fight. Yeah. It's not that he's got great top control or anything like that, or that he threatens these crazy submissions, but he could wear you down if you don't have great cardio. I just ultimately think his boxing is pretty slick. I'd like it if he kept his hands up a little bit more and if he wasn't so heavy on the front foot, but like, I don't think Journey really does enough to threaten in any of those areas. So I think ultimately they're given kind of a soft stylistic matchup. Journey's going to be throwing mostly boxing type of stuff. That's what he does. Yeah. So for Fernie, this is like hey, welcome to the UFC, kiddo. Like, this is one of those Contender Series guys that I actually feel comfortable being on the back of. So, Guru, I mean, anything further?
No, I mean, yeah, you nailed it. I like Fernie Garcia here. He's more of a volume striker than a power striker. He's got good counters. He showed himself with a good chin by keeping his hands down low and getting hit in the face too often. So he's also very susceptible to his leg kicks because he keeps his feet planted. As we said, keeps his hands low. Dana White Contender Series winner, as we've mentioned. But similarly with Journey Newsom, very flat-footed as well open to the leg kick. One thing you do like about Journey Newsom, he does show himself to be fairly well composed, in fights, patient. But honestly, there's nothing that stands out about Journey. There's nothing that jumps off the page. There's nothing that he does incredibly that jumps off the cage like Justin Gaichi. There's nothing that really jumps off the page about him. He's fairly middling, and I think that's being nice. 2.76 strikes landed per minute, 2.76 strikes absorbed. To me, that's just really fun. Down to the 100th place. What do you got, Clint?
Dana White Contender Series fade. We got a guy making his UFC debut in Fernie Garcia, who had a decent showing on the Contender Series and is now taking on a guy who has fought one of the top contenders in the UFC. Now, granted, he got his head kicked off by that man and the fight was over with the first kick that was thrown. But again, he is 0-2-1 in the UFC. His one win was actually a win. It was overturned. He had a failed drug test. So he does know how to win at the UFC level. I agree he's a bit undersized, but honestly, I like how explosive he is. He's got good, fast punches, and Fernie throws a lot of looping hooks. I actually think that Journey Newsom will be able to beat him to the punch more often than not, and he just got his BJJ black belt. So if he wants to take this thing down to the mat, I think he will have a decent advantage there. I think there's some options for Journey Newsom to win the fight, and it's thin, but I think this line should be a pick 'em, or maybe Journey should be ever so slightly favored. Fernie Garcia hasn't really proven to me that he can do much of anything. He doesn't really hold guys down all that well when he gets to the mat. He can take people down. He just doesn't keep them there. So he doesn't score well with those takedowns. Like you mentioned, he has a long history of struggling with the leg kicks, which is something Journey Newsom actually does pretty well. And Fernie's hittable as shit, you guys. Like, I think the speed advantage, being the smaller guy for Journey Newsom, is actually going to help him here. I'm looking at potentially betting Newsom and CJ and hoping to go 1-1 because they're both decent sized underdogs. Play the Dana White Contender Series angle on both of them and just say 1 unit each. Hope to get one of them through, and if both through, then we do a backflip. But as long as one of the as long as the fade goes 50-50, it's profit.
That's a good point. Yeah, listen, we love fading the Dana White Contender Series prospects here too. So you're not going to get too much grief from me from that. I just I just think Journey's with your point too is like, right, these fighters when they have their back up against the wall seem to have done well.
He's the
0-2 and
hometown
1.
kid too.
Yeah, 0-2 and 1. In the UFC. So it's very possible that he gets cut if he doesn't make it. Shout out Dez. Yeah, man. We always try to keep it stacked with the guests. We really do. We try to keep all our fans entertained out there, all the listeners entertained. We want to have legitimate discourse about the fights. It's not just a presentation of thoughts and feelings. We want to really talk this shit out, flesh it out, and figure out where the value is. And no better guy to bring in than Clint. So thanks so much for joining us for nearly 2.5 hours. You fucking savage. Thank you so much for tuning in with us, man. Seriously.
Hey, my pleasure. Thank you guys very much for having me. It's always a good time when I come and hang out with you guys. It's always fun. Definitely appreciate you guys and always spreading the love. It's always a good time. I know I'm repeating myself. I apologize. It's been a long week. I'm pretty much wiped at this point.
No, we get it, man. You just had your show with
Manpreet,
Yeah.
I mean, the dude is rolling on. So, guys, listen, go check out our Bet MMA. Go follow at diehardmmapod. Go follow us everywhere because you got to get what these final plays are. But let's get everyone out of here. Guru, wrap it up real quick for us,
you
man.
can follow Die Hard MMA Pod if you don't already. That would be ridiculous if you don't. You can find me at Guru Scouting MMA on Twitter, Verdict, Instagram, and Tapology. You can find my awesome co-host TB Scouting MMA on Twitter, Verdict, Instagram, and Tapology. Best of luck with everybody with your bets. Tune in next week for Blachowicz versus Rakic, right? Your light heavyweight main event. We're bringing on Adrian Yanez, guys, on the pod. Very excited. Should have a little brief interview with him and maybe break down some of these fights. So make sure you stay tuned. We stay fire with those guests.
All right, guys, take care.
And brush your hair.